There we go. Can't see my chat though on YouTube for some reason. Whatever. But yeah. That's how he made a lot of his money. But that's kind of where that is. There's not really much more information, but Ethan Klein did sue or is suing Ian for Ethan Klein is suing Ian, I believe, for what Destiny said about him. Because I think Destiny implied that like Ethan Klein was a child molester in like his messages. And like Ian was like, whoa, isn't this a crazy thing that Destiny said? And Ethan was like, you're doing defamation. You're doing defamation. Implied. I mean, I didn't see the messages itself, but that's what I'm aware of. So they're claiming that Ian is doing defamation by showing what Destiny was saying about Ethan. Right? Which is like, I guess you can't be a journalist anymore. If a journalist reports on allegations, they're doing defamation actually. Right? The journalist isn't making the claim, but they're saying this person is making the claim. They're doing defamation. So I don't even think Ethan cares if he will win this or not win this. I think it's more just about like using lawsuits to silence his dissonance. And it's crazy because like Ethan Klein's entire calling card and how he got so prominently like famous was because he was like the free use guy. The fair use guy. That's a different thing. He was the fair use guy. The very different thing. He was the fair use guy. He was the guy who was like, I react to copyright. I react to things. I got sued for it. I actually didn't violate copyright. I made an entire precedent about why I should be allowed to react to things, basically. Ryan Reynolds is the free use guy. This is true. There's on a bunch and no knowledge of the law, let alone in Canada law. I think Addis has a competent lawyer. He got this in the bag.
Sean the boy says she's my African princess.
More Ty, thank you for the 3 months. Subscribed. Also, Fern Club, thank you for the Prime. I feel like Ethan Klein picked up Berta to 5 because we don't have anti-slap legislation here. Maybe. It's just like, I don't think he thinks he's going to be successful. He just has money to dick swing. That's all he's doing. He's like, I'm going to start suing creators because like I have this buttload of money. Which is like, you're not going to have this buttload of money if you keep using that money to sue creators. You know what I mean? Six lawsuit, by the way. Yeah. I don't even know how people still watch it. You know what I mean? I don't get it. I know that like they don't care about like Palestine. They don't care about like, you know, politics as a whole. Like it can't be fun. I haven't tuned into his stream in a while. It's been like 8 months or something since I last saw an Ethan Klein stream. So I don't even know what he's talking about. There. Yeah, he has no mustache here. Hassan defends China's war against gay people. Girl with the microphone. But that's 6 months ago. That's 6 months ago. It's about Hassan also. 72,000 views. 75,000 views. 25. That's really bad. 123,000. 323,000. 127,000. Every single day, Shank. I live as a like on his episodes, he's getting 300,000 views, less than 400,000 views. That's really bad. Bro, he had Reckless Ben on 11 days ago and only got 500,000. You know Reckless Ben from like the Lego thing? Oh. The German mind cannot comprehend bookies. It's like, dude, this is a gas station. Yep. Indeed. Honestly, a pretty small one if you consider it in context.
Sean the Black
He's got
says,
half a
"She's
million
my
views a day
African
before.
princess."
Rat Daddy 00 just subscribed. Best stream.
The day before
Thank
this,
you.
where's that? Oh, here with James Charles. I need your help. He used to chat. He used to crack 1 million views per podcast episode. Like we're gonna keep scrolling. Even like a year ago, he was getting 600K, right? 700K, 800K. This is 1 year ago. 700K. These are the constant combos 1.5, 1.7. In case you're wondering why he keeps talking about like Idubbbz and Ian, Idubbbz and Hassan and Frogan or whatever, right? 600K, 500K, 500K, 600K, 600K. That's 1 year ago. Go back to a year before this, right? When they had leftovers or whatever, 1.8K, 1.8 million, 1.4 million, 1 million, 800, 900,000, 1 million, 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 1 million. He was pulling like 1 million views 2 years ago. He went from pulling in 1 million views per episode to pulling in 300,000 views per episode. That is like 30% of what he was pulling in on his main channel episodes. 300,000. Like, and that's not even addressing the after dark episodes that they keep posting that nobody watches with 75K, 72K on a almost 3 million subscriber channel. Like, we're gonna eat the freeze guy, I'm dead. Listen, you mess up a term one time, and the people will just keep holding it against you. They wouldn't start a podcast until they had 20,000 people waiting. Now they're happy if they had 20,000 live viewers. It's just so sad, right? It's sad. It's sad. Like even here, I'm squashing the beef with Ida. Sues them 3 weeks later. I don't think he was actually squashing the beef. But I am slightly curious about what he said. I can't believe Dan is still here, by the way.
It is. Till all of a sudden, flash forward, she can't even hold 80 live viewers. And
is he good? Is he good?
now she's like, actually, I'm too busy for this. You're busy. You don't have a job. You don't have kids. You're not busy. You're a loser. Excuse me. How the fuck are you going to tell me you're busy if you don't even have a fucking job or kids? You said, how? Busy doing what exactly? Serving an uncut bagel on a paper plate? How exactly are you spending your time? But anyway.
This is really bad. This is no, I'm not doing these sounds. This is what his sound. The person he pays. The person he pays is doing these sounds. Like,
I'm a big fan, if you can't tell. But at any rate, I am breaking the embargo, but it's for one last time.
all right, I have to transform the content. You're right. Hold on, chat. We got to make it transformative real quick. There we go.
This is it. Like, I'm out. And, you know, I broke the embargo recently because Ian issued an apology to me and my family. Bruh. For platforming the,
Perfect, thank you.
this silly, lighthearted joke, the gag, that I molest my children. You know, just a gag.
Fine movement. It's different on that one.
You know, just something you say about your friends. And then I saw people being like, okay, honestly, this is development. Ian is actually, maybe he's come along. Maybe he's actually developing as a character.
I'm sorry, I missed what he's talking about.
But I was the only one that knew. No, it happened like one day after we sent them a cease and desist. They stopped talking about us. Bruh. Right? So I know why they stopped. And I know we have a really good case in Canada, and their lawyer told them that. Right? And so essentially that's what it is.
Oh, so this was 3 weeks ago. So apparently this was something that was brewing. Like, you were like coughing on the mic. That's what I've heard. They stopped talking. He apologized. So why is he still suing? Because he's a loser. That's kind of what it is. Aren't you upside down too? Oh, you're right. I got you. I got you. Wait, actually, I wonder if I can do this. Hold on. This is gonna be, I can fix this. There we go. There we go. Transformative.
But so Ian and Anissa reacted to my response to them, which was...
You're right. I got it. Hold on. Transformative. Oh, no, I didn't. Boom. Transformative.
Basically just saying that I sent them a cease and desist. I haven't sued them or anything. But here's his response. And
then he goes on to sue them less than a month later.
I found it quite amusing, so I thought we would watch it, have a good time. Here it is. This is just a bon voyage. This is a fond farewell to a friend. This is goodbye.
Like the Elton John song?
Yes. Elliott Smith, I believe, also has a fond farewell song. But yeah, that's out.
Okay, I'm bored of this. He's boring me. I'm bored. Yada, yada, yada. He ends up suing Ian after this entire segment. Also, apparently AB's still there. I can tell by the watches. AB's still there. Dan's still there. Did I think that they would leave? No. But they did lose their self-respect. Olivia did leave a while ago. So, did they address the Denver lawsuit? I don't know, bro. I don't think so. Anyway, we'll see how this goes. Yawn. But that's the Ethan Klein situation. He's suing Ian. For people who just got here.
It is official. I am being
Hold on, wait. Transformative. There we go.
sued by Ethan Klein in the courts of Calgary, Alberta,
Whoa.
for defamation.
Whoa.
I do plan on fighting against this, but for now it is in the hands of the courts and our attorneys I will say that
I like hanging upside down.
it worries me what it means for the commentary community, and especially the Canadian commentary community. But this is about all I can say, at least for now. I'm sorry that the stream is so short. I wish I could give you a lot more grease, but I will resume the regularly scheduled content on Thursday.
Okay,
Again,
arms are in.
I'm sorry it's so short, but we will be back. And I appreciate you being here for this important announcement.
Does it make sense suing him for what? They're suing him because Ian showed a screenshot of something that Destiny said about Ethan Klein. So they're saying that Ian did defamation because he just showed something that Destiny said about Ethan. So shouldn't he go after? Yeah, shouldn't he go after Destiny? Well, he's scared of Destiny. Also, Destiny is too right wing for him, not left wing enough. And I see the person who said it, because these lawsuits are just for a personal beef. It's just for a personal beef. It's to settle personal vendettas that he has with people. That's it. Also, he's sponsored by Destiny's best friend, so he's not gonna sue the person who lines his pockets, basically. Because if he sues Destiny, then React.dev may take away their sponsorship money. And then how will they pay for these people's lives? How will they keep hiring new employees?
Have a good day, everyone.
So just keep that in mind. The reason he won't sue SQC for barely reacting to the nuke. Yeah. But that's just kind of how it is. Yeah. Wait and see. Ow, my hand. Gosh darn it. Wait and see. Excuse me. Wait and see. Now let's get into Let's get into you already covered the Rabb Planner BS? No, I haven't actually. It's right here. This is the next thing we're gonna talk about. Somebody said this to me in my Discord. Because I don't usually see Grand Platinum stuff on Twitter. Sometimes Twitter still breaks and shows me Grand Platinum stuff, even though I have his name like muted. Which is how I know that the election was yesterday and he won. Which isn't really a surprise. But apparently the Platter Defense Brigade, or as I would say, Platwater, is like mad at Chris Rabb for his take on Grand Platinum, I guess. This video is titled Fetterman Vibes, DSA Dem won't defend Grand Platinum. Glad Hassan supported Rabb on what he said. Did Hassan cover it? How am I late to this? Bro, I'm washed. I'm supposed to be on the cutting edge of stuff like this. Gosh darn it. Well, somebody has Hassan's response. We'll take a look at it too. That's what you get? I guess. I always miss all the good freaking trauma. Let's get into it. Because apparently people did not like Chris Rabb's response here. Because he didn't do a good enough job defending the token white boy of the year. Let's see.
Future of the Democratic Party this morning. We are very fortunate to be joined by Pennsylvania State Representative Chris Rabb. He is the Democratic nominee for Pennsylvania's 3rd Congressional District. Welcome, sir, and congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. We followed your election with interest. You had a lot of powerful forces going against you, a lot of interesting things that happened there. What do you think is the message that your pretty, clear-cut, fairly overwhelming victory in this primary sends to the party?
Yeah, it was a stunning defeat of entrenched politics here in Philadelphia, in the bluest congressional district in the entire nation, where we had not had an open seat, no incumbent on the ballot, first time in 35 years, against a political class that was united against this progressive. And it was a 15-point win. And I think it's a resounding affirmation that organized people beat organized money every time.
And you seem to be taking I don't know that it's a novel approach, but you've gone out of your way to go and campaign for other candidates, both incumbents who you support, like Summer Lee, who you're likely to serve with in Congress, others who, are challenging incumbents and are running sort of upstart campaigns across the country. Why has that been important to you? What role do you feel like you are serving and that you want to serve?
Wait, did they bring him here just to defend Graham Plattner? That's your second question? Your first question is, hi, how are you doing? Your second question is, you like to defend candidates, right? And he's like, yeah. Third question, why haven't you done that for Graham Plattner yet? Why haven't you done that for Graham Plattner yet? Have you heard of this Graham Plattner guy? I think you should probably campaign with this. You should support this guy. He's great. Support him. Why are you not doing that? That's kind of maybe I'm jumping the gun here a little bit, which apparently is a track record. I'll let it cook. I'll let it cook.
Well, to be clear, I'm a movement candidate, and that means the movement has allowed me to have a collective victory. And that means that whatever political capital, whatever momentum I have as the presumptive next member of Congress for the city of Philadelphia means I got to pay it forward. And it's also in my best interest. I want to come in with this largest, boldest, progressive class of members in U.S. history. So the only way you can do that is by showing up for others who are viable, substantive candidates. And I'm really excited about our not just taking back the House. I mean, there's a big difference between having a Democratic majority and having a party that knows how to lead in the belly of the beast and in the most adverse times in modern history. Those are two different things on the Venn diagram of national politics. So I want to make sure that we have a critical subset of Democrats who are going to vote in furtherance of shared prosperity and fighting fascism and taxing the ultra wealthy and having structural changes that the base is demanding, but corporate Democrats refuse to acknowledge or commit to.
You were critical of Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, which became a campaign issue, actually, for you. One of your opponents had some pretty interesting things to say about that. But I'm just curious, since you have won the Democratic nomination, just so people know, Pennsylvania's 3rd congressional district is one of the most Democratic in the entire country, so very much expected that you will be sworn in with the next class of members of Congress. How has the party responded to your victory? Have you had any outreach from, the sort of establishment leaders of the Democratic Party?
Oh, absolutely. They've all reached out to me quickly, and I appreciate that outreach. We got to build relationships. We got to figure out how we can work together. But I would push back a little bit. I wouldn't say I was critical of Hakeem Jeffries per se, but it's just when someone tries to, say, will you support him? My answer is, what is any candidate for majority leader, for Speaker of the House? How is their leadership going to resonate with how I got elected to office and who else is running? I don't know who's running. So, I think that's important. It's not about the individual. It's about who seeks that position to what end. And that has to be aligned with the electorate and the constituents I seek to represent on January 3rd. But I also know that it's a body of 435. You need 218 votes to get anything done. And we have to figure out what we can agree on and the things we can't agree on, how those of us who are left of the party to move the party forward. And those are things that have to happen simultaneously.
So you say you're not a no on Hakeem Jeffries as potential speaker, but you're a we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I need to know who's running, right? I mean, the reality is he could be the only one on the ballot, right? So it's a non-issue there. But that's not, to me, that is not as important as how we hold whomever is running and whoever wins to account. And that's not based on my personal preferences or it's based on how I got elected. If those leaders work for the members put them in those positions of
literally no
power.
one else. I mean, I think that's true from like a practical standpoint, right? He basically said if Fighter or anyone else on his side will work with them, but also their what? Would him be the only one running be an issue in itself? I mean, yeah, but it's not necessarily an issue that he can particularly like change or address. My take is that like I think you still don't lose anything by just being like, yeah, we need new leadership. Yeah, we need someone different, and Hakeem Jeffries just isn't doing it. But like, I don't think it's just like I don't think this is like a huge issue. He's want to burn that bridge if it's the only bridge. Yeah, but I do think that he should, personally.
How do we hold them to account, and how do they express their willingness to do the
But
thing?
also, it's not dissimilar from what Graham Plattner said about working with, like, the current establishment to get himself elected. You know what I mean? But that's also like, it's a similar a similar conversation. I do have a similar answer to the Jeffries question. I mean, most people have that answer. It's because like it's what politics is, unfortunately. Right? It's like I'm going to work with whoever's currently in power, even if I don't like them. Right? Even if I want to see like new leadership. Right? It's that same thing. I still think that you should be like, nah, I hate this guy. This guy sucks. Right? But like I haven't seen anybody running on the Democratic ticket who said anything like meaningfully different, because they're running on the Democratic ticket, right? Their entire thing is like, I'll work within the current system and with people that I don't necessarily agree with in order to get incremental like change. It's kind of like the entire thing of like working within the Democratic Party, right? So I don't expect anything particularly different in that regard.
That a larger subset of Democrats in Congress want, and that is going to be a back and forth. We also have to understand too that for the folks we may not prefer in leadership or in office at all, but who are going to be there serving in whatever capacity, for those of us who are there with them, our responsibility between election cycles is holding our own colleagues to account and moving them towards the moral center, not the political center. And that is something that people should want their newly elected incumbents to do, because listen, we have a clear villain here. It's Trump, it's MAGA extremism, it's fascism, it's late stage capitalism, it's any number of things. But we can't make our colleagues the enemy. They may be not on the same page with us, but it's our responsibility to make them do better. And we have seen some progress when we have, not myself quite yet, but others in Congress get some of their colleagues to stop taking APAC money. That's a win, and we need to respect that, and we also need to understand that that comes with certain risks for the people who have been funded by folks we don't believe they should be funded by, which also means we need to support them if they're truly understanding of why that dynamic is so problematic.
I wanted to get you to weigh in on what's going on right now with Graham Plattner up in Maine, because I do think it has some important fissures here in terms of the direction of the Democratic Party. His ideological program and yours is not exactly the same, but you're more or less in the same lane and have, similar views of the world. And certainly, have been clear-cut, clear-throated opponents of genocide, of AIPAC funding, and the influence of the Israel lobby.
It's still confusing about like why invoke Graham Plattner. I know why, but like why invoke Graham Plattner and not like Abdullah Saeed? You know what I mean? Like why Graham Plattner specifically is the person you bring up in this regard? Because there are a lot of overlaps with like the Abdul race in Michigan and then Graham Plattner in Maine, right? It's the same thing like progressivism and leftism versus establishment centrist like, Democratic politics, right? Like Graham Platter running against Janet Mills in an election that he won handedly because Janet Mills, dropped out basically. Or like Abdullah Stove like facing against Haley Stevens and Mallory McCrow. Like, wouldn't it make more sense for like the progressives to weigh in on the Abdul race because it's like a more contentious race that has more failure points than like the race in Maine, just from a practical sense, right? From a practical sense, it would make more sense to like do that with Abdul instead of like with Graham Platter specifically. It doesn't make much sense to me in that regard.
He has faced a number of allegations, some of which he's, acknowledged that he had a very rough go of it after serving in the military, that he had a drinking problem, he has PTSD, that he engaged in toxic behavior in relationships, other aspects of which he's completely denied.
Like, what does this have to do with Chris Rabb? I don't know what this has to do with him. You know what I mean? Like why does Chris Rabb have to answer for Graham Platter's allegations? Right? Like it doesn't make sense to me.
There was an allegation from a Republican political operative that he had grabbed her by the shoulders forcefully, that he had yanked her by the hand out of a cab, that he had put her arm behind her back and pushed her inside of a room.
Like, what do they want him to say? Oh, this is all fake, obviously. Obviously, it's fake. Obviously, this is a fake smear against a good man. Like, I don't think Chris Rabb knows Graham Platter personally. Like, why would he go to bat for like against like abuse allegations for this dude that he doesn't really know, like at all? Like, I don't get it. That's just a weird thing to me. Let me know if my Graham Platter bias is like is showing here. But I don't understand like what they want for Chris Rabb to do here. I don't get it. I actually don't know.
Again, she says this occurred, he denies it, and the New York Times was unable to.
Like, you want him to be like, you want Chris Rabb to be like, yeah, obviously she's lying. She's a liar. What? Like, I don't get it. I don't get it.
Confirm it. I wonder what you make of the allegations and also what has been seen.
Claim is a Republican op works for work to get Kavanaugh in power. That's actually not the case. She's a Republican op. This is true. Working to get Kavanaugh in power is not the case. The organization she worked for did. I don't think they did that while she was there. But again, I don't know. Not the point. Point is that none of that even matters in the first place, because why is Chris Rabb being asked about? You know what I mean? Like that's the weird part. Because we can sit here and be like, whether or not like her being like a Republican op and her taking her account of the event versus Graham Platter, we can litigate that as like the base, right? But like, why are we asking? Like, this is more than like Republicans ask progressives or just like Democrats in general about Graham Platter. By wanting to offer solidarity to a fellow progressive. That's not offering solidarity. That's like caping for in like what's the word? Like, I mean, it's like sweeping for him, basically. Like, that's what it is. It's not like it would be one thing. It was like, how do you feel about the race in Maine or whatever? It's like, hey, let me list out all of his different controversies, right? And tell you that why you should be like, this guy is great, by the way, because he's being attacked and maligned unjustifiably, right? But again, so was Abdullah Saeed was also being attacked and maligned unjustifiably for the past like 12 months. You know what I mean? Like they were claiming that he was like caving for the Ayatollah, claiming that he's like a terrorist or whatever. Like what about that? Right? And again, that race is even more contentious. It's closer than Graham Plattner's races. Like that's it would like objectively make more sense to ask him about that race and have him weigh in on that race to get his support for than Graham Plattner, who just won his the nomination officially yesterday. And I think it's pronounced El Said, like it with a D at the end. Okay. People want you to judge them by their enemies so bad, but all that does is tell me that you are good on an issue. Like they're not asking for support. They're asking someone to dismiss sexual assault and physical abuse claims for somebody that he doesn't know. Like that's crazy. Exactly. Like they're not asking him to support Graham Plattner, right? They're like, here are all of his allegations. Can you just say that this is like obviously a fake smear? Like it's silly. I think it's silly. Yeah.
Some of the influence of the Israel-throated opponent and have similar views of the world, and certainly have been clear-throated opponents of genocide, of AIPAC funding, and the influence of the Israel lobby. He has faced a number of allegations, some of which he's acknowledged that he had a very rough go of it after serving in the military, that he had a drinking problem, he has PTSD, that he engaged in toxic behavior in relationships, other aspects of which he's completely denied. There was an allegation from a Republican political operative that he had grabbed her by the shoulders forcefully, that he had yanked her by the hand out of a cab, that he had put her arm behind her back and pushed her inside of a room. Again, she says this occurred. He denies it, and the New York Times was unable to confirm it. I wonder what you make of the allegations and also what has been seen as extreme scrutiny into his life that doesn't seem to be matched with a level of scrutiny into others who do not challenge the oligarchy and do not challenge, AIPAC and the status quo on Israel as aggressively as he does.
I think it's a crazy expectation. I do. I think this is a crazy expectation to expect from a candidate. This is no different than expecting like AOC from a Republican perspective to like speak on Graham Plattner either. You know what I mean? It's like no different from like Fox News being like, AOC, you are a progressive. What do you have to say about this Graham Plattner guy and all of his abuse and stuff? It's like no different, but like from like this is the exact same type of purity testing that like these same people cry about. I have to point that out. This is actually purity testing. Like objectively, actually purity testing. About something completely inconsequential. It's like, you must like come out and defend the bestest of boys. And if you don't do that adequately enough, you are in Israel's pocket. And you're pro-establishment Democrat. I don't like you. It is a purity test. This is a purity test to see whether or not you will debase yourself to defend Graham Plattner.
Yeah, this is challenging for me because I've felt that folks who have been identified as hard-scrabbled, populist, left of center, white guys get far more leeway than folks like me.
I don't know how many times Black leftists have to say this for it to register in the minds of the white left. Because it's true. I've been saying this for months. I have been saying this for months. Summer Lee did say the same thing as well. I've been saying it for months. The option is a woman who literally campaigned with a neo-Nazi in Maine just saying, I don't care, chatter. Graham Plattner already beat his competition. He's already ahead. I do not care. I do not base my politics based on how bad the other guy is. If I did that, I would have supported Kamala Harris in 2024. But I critiqued Kamala Harris in 2024 because she did bad stuff and demanded critique. You can do like Graham Plattner, and you can defend Graham Plattner without expecting and demanding fealty from like the black leftists who don't get your support as well. We can scroll through Breaking Points right now. We can scroll through Secular Talk, right? We can scroll through all these white leftist channels and compare the amount of time that they talked about and defended Graham Plattner to the time that they talked about Chris Rabb. We can do it. Oh, hold on. Sorry, I'm getting a call.
Black progressives. And that's a double standard that is largely based on race. And I think that's a conversation we need to have. If I had some problematic tattoo that related to white folk, I don't think I would be viable, even in a majority black district, because I think the money would not be there for me to run the campaign I needed. I think there's a clear double standard that the left has to talk about as it relates to our racial politics and what is acceptable. And, you know, I also have PTSD. I have actual PTSD. And I also have political PTSD because in this state, we elected a fake populist in Fetterman. And when I feel Fetterman vibes, I get very, very nervous. I don't know Plattner. I've not followed his race closely. I've had, a grueling 10-month campaign I'm just coming out of. So now I'm really seeing what's on the landscape of opportunity in the House and the Senate. But I do think we need to hold space for folks with genuine grievances, and we need to have a process for those folks who are expressing legitimate concerns about the behaviors and choices of candidates, but to do so in a way that is in the spirit of restorative justice, as opposed to the spirit of the politics of personal destruction. And I think that is something that is really, really necessary, because what we don't want to do is to silence or erase the voices of people who have felt real harm, particularly women. But we also have to make sure that we do not feel that there's a class of candidate that has to be perfect. There are no perfect candidates. And we also have to make sure that those candidates acknowledge their faults. Everyone has them, and how we work through them. So if he said, I have a, I understand when someone says, I made a bad choice as a young man and I was struggling with addiction and that sort of thing. We need to hold space for that. But you also may have intervening years or decades where you did not do any further introspection about what you've done, so that you can feel a sense of atonement that other people can value as legitimate long before you ever considered public office. We can hold those two truths at the same time.
So you don't believe he's done sufficient atonement to have sought public office?
I don't know. I don't know. But I think that is something that needs to be addressed before November 3rd. Absolutely.
Isn't that up to the voters to decide?
Well, it's not just voters who decide who's a viable candidate. Viability is also based on how much money you raise, what your platform is, how you come into, are you a movement candidate, or are you a candidate who says the right things in the right political moment to be aligned with a movement that shows considerable political power? I don't know. I've not watched his candidacy that closely to answer those questions, but those are conversations that need to happen within community and not on social media.
So he, just to be clear, he was a movement organizer in Maine, which is how he came to the attention of people to encourage him to run for office. The primary is today in Maine. His, opponent, main opponent, was the former governor, or current governor, Janet Mills, who has suspended her campaign. She is not particularly ideologically aligned with you. She's much more supportive of our status quo with regard to Israel. She has, done things like veto tax hikes on the rich in the state of Maine. She's had an adversarial relationship with labor unions. If you were looking at this race, like, do you think that voters would be better off choosing her because she's had fewer personal controversies than Graham Plattner?
No, but it's a matter of how we hold the people who we would prefer in office to account. I think that's the issue, right? Because sometimes we vote for people. Well, sometimes we vote for people, right? And sometimes we vote for the person who we have a better chance of holding to account and making sure that the candidate functions similarly once in office, right? Because it's very easy, particularly in these moments, to campaign as a progressive. It's radically harder to govern as a progressive. And I speak as someone who is currently in legislative session here in Pennsylvania, in Harrisburg, in the largest full-time state legislature in the country. It is very hard to govern as a progressive. And so how we hold anyone to account, myself included, is by making sure that they fulfill their promises that they made in the campaign, on the campaign trail, and making sure
What I miss? Miss some fire?
Allegations, some of which he's, acknowledged that he had a very rough go of it after serving in the military, that he had a drinking problem, he has PTSD, that he engaged in toxic behavior in relationships, other aspects of which he's completely denied. There was an allegation from a Republican political operative that he had grabbed her by the shoulders forcefully, that he had yanked her by the hand out of a cab, that he had put her arm behind her back and pushed her inside of a room. Again, she says this occurred. He denies it. And the New York Times was unable to confirm it. I wonder what you make of the allegations and also what has been seen as extreme scrutiny into his life that doesn't seem to be matched with a level of scrutiny into others who do not challenge the oligarchy and do not challenge, AIPAC and the status quo on Israel as aggressively as he does.
Yeah.
Before he speaks, I already saw a little bit of this as well because before I had to leave. I also want to remind you, right, about what I said all the time about Graham Plattner. They don't defend Graham Plattner because they specifically like what he's done. Some people might, right? But right leftists defend Graham Plattner because he's useful. Right? Graham Plattner is useful to them as a white masculine figure that they can use to potentially attract young white men, right? And so the reason why you see the response that we're going to look at in the comments in a second, right, from the white left is because they find Graham Plattner more useful than they find Chris Rabb. That's why you see people siding with Graham Plattner over Chris Rabb, because they find Graham Plattner more useful. They don't find a use, right, in black leftists. They don't think black leftists are useful. As soon as Rabb mentioned race, he lost white leftists. They hate when you mention race. Yeah. Right. And this is what I say when I say Graham Plattner is the exact same type of identity politics that white leftists claim to hate. Right? That's it. It is identity politics. It's Graham Plattner is useful because he is white. Graham Plattner is useful because he can attract the white demographic that they seek to build, right? Graham Plattner is useful because Graham Plattner speaks to them in the position that they were in. And they think that Graham Plattner is kind of the what the left needs, truly. You know what I mean? Sorry. Hispanic here. I find Chris Rabb more useful than Platter because he's a avowed sock with a history of left organizing. Have you considered, Chatter, that your opinion doesn't matter because you are a Hispanic leftist and you are not the demographic that they care about? They don't care about marginalized leftists. They don't care about attracting marginalized people. They care about attracting white people. This is what white supremacy dictates, right? It's making whiteness a central part of the conversation. You know?
This is challenging for me because I've felt that folks who have been identified as hard scrabbled, populist, left of center white guys get far more leeway than folks like me, Black progressives. And that's a double standard that is largely based on race. And I think that's a conversation we need to have. If I had some problematic tattoo that related to white folk, I don't think I would be viable, even in a majority Black district, because I think the money would not be there for me to run the campaign I needed. I think there's a clear double standard that the left has to talk about as it relates to our racial politics and what is acceptable.
Oh man, they're gonna hate. They do hate this, right? He is 100% right, 100% correct, 100% correct. He's saying what I get yelled at for saying. He's 100% right.
And I also have PTSD. I have actual PTSD, and I also have political.
Okay, that's a little bit funny. He said, "I have actual PTSD." That is a little bit funny and a little bit shady. I like that. I like that.
PTSD, because in this state, we elected a fake populist.
Song reacted to this and how that was a chat implosion. I think a song reacted to a part of it. I didn't see the chat's reaction.
My goat, Chris Rabb. I stand with.
Here, we're gonna get to it. We're gonna get to it.
In Fetterman, and a fake populist in Fetterman, and we elected a fake populist in Fetterman, and when I feel Fetterman vibes, I get very, very nervous. I don't know Plattner. I've not followed his race closely. I've had, a grueling 10-month campaign I'm just coming out of. So now I'm really seeing what's on the landscape.
As in politics, to JC, how do you feel about Plattner? Listen, I have thoughts that I won't speak to because we'll be here all day.
Of opportunity in the House and the Senate, but I do think we need to hold space for folks with genuine grievances, and we need to have a process for those folks who are expressing legitimate concerns about the behaviors and choices of candidates, but to do so in a way that is in the spirit of restorative justice, as opposed to the spirit of the politics of personal destruction. And I think that is something that is really, really necessary, because what we don't want to do is to silence or erase the voices of people who have felt real harm, particularly women. But we also have to make sure that we do not feel that there's a class of candidate that has to be perfect. There are no perfect candidates. And we also have to make sure that those candidates acknowledge.
It kind of just sounds like he's just saying critical support for Plattner. Like, you don't have to glaze him, right? But like, obviously there's no perfect candidate. Like, and people still got mad at this. Anything less than just like fealty, anything less than fealty is like a problem for people who are a part of Plattwater. That's it. Right? If you join Plattwater after doing 4 tours in the military, then like you have to like, you're like, how dare you? How dare you? I did say Plattwater. This is my term. I've coined it. I coined it. It's mine. he must bend the knee to the white left seemingly populist candidate, and that's a crazy expectation. It is a crazy expectation, right? Because like Chris Rabb is not even saying that he hates Graham Plattner. You know, he's not even saying I hate Graham Plattner. He's just like, hey, like, you know, I feel like the way that I think Graham Plattner is being talked about is a bit weird, and I would never have gotten this level of defense. And he's right. He's correct. He's objectively right. Right? And if you like Graham Plattner, I must ask you to suspend your aggression. This is a magic card, and it says suspend aggression. I literally was just thumbing through this. I was like, that's funny. But I have another one. And I render you speechless. Hold on, there's one more in here. Wander off my stream and go somewhere else. Boom. I think that's it. As Island. I'm not even anti-Platinum or I hate him. I understand why he happened in Maine and why his win is necessary. I just have my apprehensions and criticisms. But you must pledge fealty. Never having D&D with chat. I went back home. I didn't have my coding stuff here, really. I'm anti-Platinum and I hate
Acknowledge their faults. And we also have to make sure that those candidates acknowledge their faults. Everyone has them, and how we work through them. So if he said, I have a, you know, I understand when someone says, I made a bad choice as a young man and I was struggling with addiction and that sort of thing. We need to hold space for that. But you also may have intervening years or decades where you did not do any further introspection about what you've done so that you can feel a sense of atonement that other people can value as legitimate long before you ever considered public office. We can hold those two truths.
Yo, chat, he's kind of cooking. Yo, he's kind of cooking. He's kind of cooking. He's true. He's right. I'll run it back.
Made a bad choice as a young man and I was struggling with addiction and that sort of thing. We need to hold space for that. But you also may have intervening years or decades where you did not do any further introspection about what you've done so that you can feel a sense of atonement that other people can value as legitimate long before you ever considered public office. We can hold those two truths at the same time.
I don't know how many black leftists it would take to get this through to white leftists. Probably it would never happen. But again, he's saying the exact same thing that I've been saying. Not that he can't have changed. Not that he does believe the same thing. But there's been this gap of accountability. I've been saying this forever, bro. Like, accountability is not just, I'm different now, right? You have to actually, like, you know, time has to pass, right? And you have to do some introspection, right? You have to do some introspection so that you understand, right? And you show that you understand why what you did was actually wrong. And Graham Plattner hasn't done that. He just hasn't done that. Objectively speaking, has not done that.
So you don't believe he's done sufficient atonement to have sought public office?
I don't know. I don't know. But I think that is something
Good
that needs
answer.
to be addressed before November 3rd.
Good answer. Good answer. It's true. I don't think he has, personally. Graham doesn't think he did anything wrong in Iraq, and that's part of the problem. Good answer. Gosh freaking darn it. You know what this, okay, you know what this actually reminds me of? And I'll let it play in a second. It reminds me of a song talking about black leftists and Graham Plattner a few days ago. I had the clip. Because it's this conversation a little bit, right? It seems like pretty much not every single black leftist, but a lot of black leftists have this apprehension when it comes to Graham Plattner, right? They're not all Graham Plattner haters like I, but it's like, this feels weird, right? Because black people see this. They see the way that white men are treated in this country, and they're like, I wouldn't get that. You know what I mean? If I acted in this way, I wouldn't get that. And it's objectively true. It's objectively true. And you don't have to hate Graham Plattner to acknowledge that that's the case.
Absolutely.
Isn't that up to
And
the
I do-
voters to decide?
Well, it's not just voters who decide who's a viable candidate. Viability is also based on how much money you raise, what your platform is, how you come into, are you a movement candidate, or are you a candidate who says the right things in the right political moment to be aligned with a movement that shows considerable political power? I don't know. I have not watched his candidacy that closely to answer those questions, but those are conversations that need to happen within.
And it's also crazy that they expect him to speak on something that he just doesn't follow. Like, he hasn't followed the campaign. And they're like, why are you not defending Graham Plattner? He's like, I just don't know Graham Plattner. But you should still defend him. Why are you not defending him? Defend him right now. I like him. You must like him. Like him right now. You defend him. Defend him right now. Why are you not defending him? Why are you not defending him right now? And what's crazy is that, like, how did the crystal ball ask Graham Plattner to defend Chris Rabb? Correct me if I'm wrong. I'll apologize if that's the case. Show me of all the times where he was on breaking points, right? Has he ever been asked to co-sign other like candidates? You know what I mean? Like, you defend the racism Idubbbz was facing? I actually don't know. Has Plattner endorsed anyone else? Even genuinely, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so, right? Which is like, that's fine. Like, I don't necessarily expect him to, but then, like, that having that expectation that, like, you have to do it for then Graham Plattner, it's weird, because the question has to be asked, why Graham Plattner specifically? You know what I mean? There are a plethora of candidates running, right? A number of different candidates that have won the primary already, running in the general, or already won their general election. Like, I think it's weird. It is a weird thing to expect for your candidates. They endorse that one guy for Maine governor. Maybe.
Community and not on social media.
So he, just to be clear, he was a movement organizer in Maine, which is how he came to the attention of people to encourage him to run for office. The primary is today.
I don't think that's necessarily true. I think he was in the community. I'm not going to take that away from him. I don't think he was a movement organizer. I don't think that's true. He was in the community, for sure. Like, that is true, right? He was a part of, like, the Maine community. I don't know if you can define him as a movement organizer. Didn't he himself say that people came to him to run? Yeah. Like, I think it was the Maine AFL-CIO It was like a main branch of a labor union who was like, we think you'll be a good candidate. You know? He was in a group and did events. I don't know if he was running them. That's it. I know he was in the community. I'm not taking that away from him. Right? I'm not taking that away from him. But I don't know if he was like an organizer in the community, you know? In the way that I would define organizer. He's one of the main ones speaking up from the crowd. That's how he got pulled, if I recall correctly. Leader is a stretch. Yeah. I don't know. This is a tad bit nitpicky, but I don't think that's the correct framing, personally. But whatever.
In Maine, his opponent, main opponent, was the former governor, or current governor, sorry, Janet Mills, who has suspended her campaign. She is not
like sure. I don't know what they want from Chris Rabb here. Like they didn't want him to be like, say you love Graham Plattner, please. And they're getting mad that Chris Rabb won't say I love Graham Plattner.
Particularly ideologically aligned with you. She's much more supportive of our status quo with regard to Israel. She has, done things like veto tax hikes on the rich in the state of Maine. She's had an adversarial relationship with labor unions. If you were
like, this is all like, sure, but like, I think the expectation to have somebody speak on a campaign that they don't know, to endorse somebody that they don't know, I think it's silly. I think it's silly. I do think it's silly. Like, genuinely. Right? I think it would be equally as silly if they went to Graham Plattner and was like, hey, this black guy's running in Pennsylvania named Chris Rabb. Do you endorse him? You know what I mean? I think that would also be silly. If he doesn't follow Chris Rabb's race, that would be a silly thing to expect from him. That is a silly way to go through politics and engage with politics. I think it is, genuinely. Like that's weird. That is a weird thing.
Looking at this race, like, do you think that voters would be better off choosing her because she's had fewer?
That's crazy. It kind of sounds like you want Janet Mills to win, actually, because you have not sworn fealty to Graham Plattner yet. It's either us or them, and you're not on us right now. You're not feeling very us right now. That's weird. That's so weird. This is just like K-Hive behavior, by the way. Just take this to like 2024. K-Hive being like, so how do you feel about like Trump saying racist stuff about like Kamala Harris? You're like, I mean, obviously that stuff's not good, but like I don't really know much about Kamala Harris as a candidate. I think she has things I disagree with her on, and you're like, oh, well, it kind of sounds like you want Donald Trump to win. Do you know who Trump is? Here's a list of things that Trump has done, actually. Do you think that voters would be better off if they chose Trump instead of Kamala Harris? Like, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. I don't have any words here. This is crazy. I did not notice that they're being wildly unprincipled. Do not feel the same rage we do when libs make these arguments. No, because they are inherently unprincipled, right? Because it's about like it's the centering of whiteness. Like, Kamala Harris was also about centering whiteness, was just slightly different, right? They were mad at Kamala Harris because she wasn't giving them the universal healthcare that they need, for the most part, right? There's also like I will say they are principled on the genocide, right? So that is a huge role and part of it. But like the way that we structure our political system is structured around the needs of white people, right? It's the needs and the wants of white people, and that's kind of it. Does that make sense? Hear more about catharsis than being principled? Yeah, and it's frustrating. It is frustrating when you look at somebody who's just like won't immediately be like, oh yeah, no, I don't know Graham Plattner a lot, but I think he's being unjustly maligned. Right? Like, why are you expecting this person to speak on like abuse allegations without knowing anything about the allegations and then getting mad at him for not defending the accused abuser with no information? You literally just told him, hey, Graham Plattner has been accused of abuse. How do you feel about that? And he's like, well, I don't really want to speak on that specifically. I do think that, I think oftentimes when it comes to like a working class like white man, sometimes I feel like they get a lot more credit than black people. And they're like, why are you not defending him right now? It kind of sounds like you want his opponent. It's just like, what do you think he should say? What did you expect him to say? Sorry. What did you expect him to say? Like, I don't know. What did you expect him to say?
Personal controversies than Graham Plattner?
No.
She's had fewer personal controversies than Graham Plattner?
No, but it's a matter of how we hold the people who we would prefer in office to account.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, I'm not a pro-Mills person. I'm not a part of the Mills Mafia, right? I'm a progressive. Graham Plattner considers himself a progressive. I have a standard for the people that we have in office because he's on our side. That makes sense. I'm not sitting here being like, oh, wow, look at what Donald Trump has said today. Because I'm not a Republican. I've never voted for Donald Trump in my entire life. So when he does something, I'm like, yeah, that buffoon's doing something again. What a surprise, right? But if the Democrats are doing something, we hold them accountable because we expect them to be better. They're supposed to be better. I don't know where this idea came from that if you critique one person, you automatically endorse their opponents. Where did that come from? Since when is that a thing? I don't get it. I don't get it. It's from MAGA. Different liberals, which they're all becoming.
I think that's the issue, right? Because sometimes we
What do you
vote
mean
for
by-
people. Well, sometimes we
just
vote
to-
for people, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes we vote for the person who we have a better chance of holding to account and making sure that the candidate functions similarly once in office, right? Because it's very easy, particularly in these moments, to campaign as a progressive. It's radically harder to govern as a progressive. And I speak as someone who is currently in legislative session here in Pennsylvania in Harrisburg in the largest full-time state legislature in the country. It is very hard to govern as a progressive. And so how we hold anyone to account, myself included, is by making sure that they fulfill their promises that they made in the campaign, on the campaign trail, and making sure that they will sit down in earnest with people who have genuine concerns and
Exactly. I have been saying this for months. I've been saying this for months. I've been saying this for months. I've been saying this for months. Exactly. Exactly. If Graham Plattner is unable to engage with people who have a genuine issue with him now, why would he ever engage with us when he actually has power? He's clicking so hard, and him being willing to be honest about this before he's even elected is a great sign. Yeah. If Graham Plattner cannot engage with critique, right, from the left of him before he's in office, why would he ever do it when he actually has power? We should be pushing our elected officials to be better, especially on the campaign trail, because there has never been an instant of somebody becoming more radically progressive, right, in office. It objectively has not happened because it objectively cannot happen. Politicians always run as more radical than they actually end up being. They do, right? Because once they get in office, they are neutered by the system itself. The system will neuter them, right? They are unable to do what they promised to do because they don't have the amount of power that they proclaim that they would have had. Things change when in office, right? Every politician becomes more moderate when they get in office. The question is whether or not they do that by design, whether or not they do that on purpose, whether or not they get elected on a specific thing and then pass through neutered policies. It's kind of like the entire calling card behind the Obama administration. You know what I mean? You get elected on a radical, even Joe Biden did this. Joe Biden was elected on a more radical, campaign promises, and then got in and then did neutered policies. This always happened. Would it be fair to say that Plattner would be an indicator on how he operates based on whether or not he moves to the center come the general election? No, you can make an assessment on how Plattner will operate based on what he's doing now, right? When he's being criticized and he brushes off any criticism as being like not important in his past, he can't ever actually apologize for the real thing. He never actually takes accountability for his harm that he's caused, right? When you look at that, you can make a description, right, or an assertion on how Graham Plattner will legislate when he's doing that on the campaign trail. There's lets it be like, why won't more progressive run for office? Why progressive male runs for office? No, not like that. No, the majority of leftists aren't ready for the hot war that will follow election losses based on principles again in 2026 or 2028. You do understand that, like, I don't have an issue with Graham Plattner running for office. My issue is with Graham Plattner being unable to hold himself accountable on the campaign trail when he's running for office. If he will not acknowledge and listen to the left when he's in office, why? But before he's in office, why would he do it after he is in office in the first place? Just make that make sense. Make that make sense. If Graham Plattner cannot acknowledge, right, the harm that he's caused now, why would he do that in office with the policies that he's crafting and pushing for? This is so stupid. You don't get to just run as a progressive and then get no critique at all, because that's how you got Fetterman. You got duped by Fetterman. The people who are defending Graham Plattner got duped by Fetterman. You got duped by Fetterman, bro. I feel like you should have your license taken away and talking about politics if you got duped by Fetterman. You afraid Fetterman had a full stroke? Fetterman did not go moderate because he had a stroke. That's not what happened. Fetterman was always a moderate, right? He was always moderate. He always wasn't radically progressive. He was always a Zionist, right? People looked past that because he was a white man. He was a white man who ran on pseudo-populist policies, and so they looked past all of his red flags because he was a white man. It was the exact same conversation. You couldn't say anything bad about John Fetterman when he was running. Because if you did, you were a wrecker who's trying to ruin the progressive chances of winning election. What? I tried to say in Graham's stream about Sean Brosette out 2024 and goes on about the plight of black women. This is so funny because I didn't even sit out in 2024. I don't know where this came from. I did more than most of your favorite content creators about actually moving Kamala Harris. Because a lot of these people, honestly, let Kamala Harris slide on a lot of stuff. So if you ever see Shout Out 2024, I was here. I made it my mission to talk. I've talked more about the election than every other content creator in existence. And I stand on that. And I know that because up until the point 2 months to the election, I played that stupid election song for like 65 days prior to the election. The battle for access, November 5th. November 5th. You think there's a way to defeat a Republican Senate without Plattner winning? I don't really care. Honestly. Like, I don't think that there's a decent chance of the Democrats winning with Plattner winning in the first place. Right? But like, I don't base my politics based on like, oh, we just need to get this many seats and then we'll solve the issue. We'll solve the world. Right? Because that's how you get duped. They're too focused on like the number of like Democrats to get elected, as if that will like radically change the way society's operating. Right? The issue is you're unprincipled. Not you specifically, but you're unprincipled, right? It's about the quality of the candidates. Dems had a trifecta in 2021. What do we have to show for it? We were in a worse state than we were in like 2016. That presumes that there is a finish line. I mean, there is a finish line. Finish line is 0 Republicans. No, the finish line is candidates that actually do shit, okay? You're too focused on the Republican-Democrat dichotomy. They're the same party. It's a uniparty. 0 Republicans is effectively the same thing as 50 Republicans. The issue is that there are candidates, right? The issue is more generally, we live in a society where we as voters are unable to actually hold our politicians to account no matter who they are. Republican, Democrat, freaking PSL, Green Party, leftist, fascist, whatever, right? The issue is that we are unable to hold all of our politicians, right, accountable and actually effectively wield political pressure against them. That's the issue. It doesn't matter if you elect an entire Congress of socialists if they don't listen to you, if they won't move when you tell them to move, if they won't jump when you tell them to jump. It's meaningless. It is meaningless if you don't have politicians who are willing to adjust their positions in order to move on these things. You need to be able to effectively utilize and weaponize power against these politicians. And so if there are politicians, right, leftists or not, Democrat, Republican, who are unable to actively and effectively be moved on any issue, right, they're not a good politician. We understand that when it's the Republicans or the Democrats who are funded by AIPAC. We understand that when we go and we protest at their events, right? We find them at a freaking restaurant, and we're like, you're a shill for Israel or whatever, right? We understand that not moving them means that they need to get out because we need to effectively utilize and weaponize political power against these people. But if they don't move because of that, then that's meaningless to us. And the issue is that Graham Plattner has not demonstrated that he is able to be swayed and be pushed by the political pressure of the wider left. And so it sounds fine for now when Graham Plattner gets in because he's like, no more weapons sold to Israel or whatever, right? But when we're like, okay, what about no more? What about doing an embargo on Israel, right? What about sanctions on the state of Israel? And he's like, no, not that. How are you going to change his mind if he's already demonstrated that he can't do that? How are you going to change his mind if he's demonstrated on the campaign trail that he doesn't want to move on these issues, right? When we come to Graham Plattner, he's like, okay, Graham Plattner, let's cut the military budget. And he was like, no, we're not doing that. How do you imagine wielding that power to push him on these issues if he's shown on the campaign trail that he's unable to actively engage the people who have reasonable critique of him? That is how you get duped by the Fettermans. Fetterman's issue is not just that he's a moderate. Fetterman's issue is that he doesn't engage with the wider left, right? He's unable to be moved on these issues, right? He's stubborn and steadfast. He got in there and he was like, I don't care what the left says. I'm going to do me instead. Right? What people are afraid of with Graham Plattner is not that he'll have the exact same positions as John Fetterman. It's that when Graham Plattner gets in, he's not going to move when we say he needs to move. Right? When we say that there needs to be a secular one-state solution in Palestine so that the state of Israel does not exercise its control over the region to stop aid from getting in, right? And creating a separate but equal apartheid system. Like, when we say that, and Graham Plattner doesn't believe that, what do you do then? When he has shown, right? When he has shown that he is not willing to engage with the criticism that the left has of him. That's the issue with Graham Plattner. That is the problem with Graham Plattner. And that is what Chris Rabb is speaking to here. Right? And there are people who on the campaign trail are defending every little thing that he has done, right? So as Justin is saying, right? He's being rewarded for his stubbornness. He's walking around here like he owns the place, not understanding and realizing that he works for us. Right? That's why I think it's slightly important to have these candidates a part of organizations. It's slightly important to have them be DSA candidates or whatever, right? Because then they have some level of tie, right, to the community, to the space, to these organizations. If a DSA candidate fails to perform, the DSA can censure them and say, if you want our support in your next election, you have to operate in this way. There is power that can be weaponized against them, right? That's power being weaponized against them. But when you see a candidate and you're like, well, he's as good as it's going to be, let's just deal with it. That's not power. It's objectively not power. And that's the problem. That's the issue. And then you're surprised Pikachu face when you get Fetterman again. And then again. And then again. Right? Nothing in this country will change if you don't hold some amount of standard. Right? Because we are going to lose Congress at some point. Even if, like, the Democrats, are able to flip the Senate, right? Even if that happens, it's going to change at some point. And we're going to be in the exact same state 4 years from now, or 8 years from now, or 12 years from now. Because we're not changing our methodology. Again, you are never going to be able to ship of Theseus the Democratic Party. It's just not going to happen. And it especially won't happen if you don't hold some amount of standards for your politician. That's it. Hold some standards, right? Joe Biden saying he's going to cancel all student loan debt on the campaign trail, right? And then not doing that. Like that is this exact kind of thing that we're talking about, right? Politicians will say whatever they want to say to get elected on the campaign trail to be elected, right? Whether or not they actually do it or not is a character issue. Whether or not they stand by what they believe or not is a character issue. Whether or not they are liars is a character issue. In the same way that John Fetterman was shown to have poor character before he was elected, that the same leftists ignored, Graham Plattner has the exact same kind of flaws. And you were unable to even entertain the idea that maybe he could have the same sort of character issues about lying about what he believes on the campaign trail. That is incoherent. Any blasting, thank you for the 10 gifted subs. And Maggie Pie, thank you for the 20 months.
Sean the Black says she's my African princess.
Maggie Pie,
It's just it's so
411
frustrating.
just subscribed.
So frustrating. Because it's not even like inherently like an anti-Plattner conversation. It's just whenever any candidate is on the campaign trail, right? You should try to push them left. This is not a hard conversation. This is not like freaking differential equations, right? This is not like calculus. It's very simple. No matter who the candidate is, you should be trying to push them left. You can still love them. You can still support them. You can still vote for them. You should still try to push them left. At least where Collins with this take. Setting themselves up for disappointment for projecting on him with terms like anti-Zionist, anti-imperialist, or anti-war. Yeah, but then they'll just pretend like they didn't do that. Make sure there's going to be a point when you're done streaming completely. For sure. There will be a point where I am done streaming completely. I'm not streaming forever, chat. It ain't happening.
Priorities that hold anyone to account, myself included, is by making sure that they fulfill their promises that they made in the campaign, on the campaign trail, and making sure that they will
Hassan gets you his account. I don't want Hassan's account, bro. You see how many haters this guy has? No, thank you.
sit down in earnest with people who have genuine concerns and priorities that may not be fully aligned by the time someone wins their primary.
One more on this, because you mentioned you got Fetterman vibes from Plattner. I want to explore that a little bit more. So Fetterman and Plattner have actually been going back and forth with each other. Fetterman's been attacking him. Graham Plattner has been responding, I think, called Fetterman an asshole. Let's go ahead and take a listen to a little bit of how John Fetterman went after Graham Plattner.
Now it's like, well, actually, John Fetterman hates him, so he can't be a Fetterman. Like, yeah, John Fetterman on the campaign trail also hated the Republicans, and he's basically a Republican now. You know what I mean? Like, that didn't stop him from basically becoming a Republican. Like,
for me as a Democrat, I'm never going to carry water for a guy that calls, you know, an American hero a dumb MFer or someone.
Okay, but you're pro-Trump, Fetterman. Like, you do carry water for a guy. Right, I hate both of these people. They both suck. I hate them both. I hate them both.
That, you know, smears Chris Kyle, you know, the American sniper, and claim that he.
Bro, Chris Kyle sucks even more. That guy is actually a Nazi as well. Like, it's like, no, not Chris Kyle.
He's shooting innocent civilians. I mean, you've literally.
What? Oh, he's like claiming he's shooting innocent civilians. I was like,
sniper, and claim that he's, you know, smears Chris Kyle, you know, the American sniper, and claim that he's shooting innocent civilians. I mean, you've literally lost count. And he also called rural Americans as.
To be fair, there's a decent chance Platter also did that.
Racist and stupid. It's countless. It absolutely is. This is a guy that had a problem with me, how I dress, but he seemed to have no problem posing in a towel at a disgusting website that consistently had serious problems about that kinds of depravity.
So I wonder if you could respond there to Senator Fetterman, but also I'm
like, respond to what? Wait. This is not Graham Plattner. I don't know if am I confused? Nope, still not Graham Plattner. Why are they asking like Chris Rabb to like respond for Graham Plattner to John Fetterman? Like, what do they even want him to say? Wow. If John Fetterman's actually attacking him, I'm sorry. I take it all back. He's actually on the up and up. He's actually the greatest. I'm sorry, Graham Plattner, for ever doubting you. If John Fetterman's attacking you,
I am curious for you to elaborate when you say that Plattner, you're getting Fetterman vibes from him. What is it specifically that you're responding to there?
No, I wasn't specifically referring to Plattner regarding Fetterman vibes, but here in Pennsylvania, I get that when people say, "Oh, I like what you're saying. You know, you seem to be right on all the issues, but how do I know you're not going to be the next Fetterman?" So that actually applies to me as well. When people are very traumatized in Pennsylvania and beyond, when they think that they're electing a progressive populist and they get something very different. I don't know Plattner enough to weigh in on that specifically, but I can tell you that, you know, I don't know how many black folk you're polling or talking to, but all I can say is we need to have more conversations about what accountability looks like for folks who are running to the left, and making sure that we understand the intersectional nature of progressivism, and ensure that folks' racial politics are aligned with the populist politics that are trending so well these days. That's all.
I mean, it's true. Because I don't talk to black people. And it's true. It's correct. It's true. Right? They don't care about that because they don't care about attracting black people. This is just, I've been telling you this for a while. Right? It's the white man show. It has been the white man show for years. It's how do we attract young white men? How do we get young white men? Young white men are leaving the Democratic Party. Young white men are not voting as much anymore. How do we attract them? That's been the totality of the conversation about politics for the last 2 years. Right? And I was told last year, leftists don't do that. That's only liberals. Only liberals care about that. Now they're saying, like, well, actually, Graham Plattner is actually very popular with young white men. And that is a constituency that's leaving the Democratic Party. Think about that, right? No quarter to the idea that, like, yeah, so are young black men, so are black women. Everybody's leaving the Democratic Party. Every constituency is leaving the Democratic Party. All of them, right? But there seems to be a hyper focus on the way that young white men engage with politics. And that is off-putting to black people. Idubbbz bad except when it's white men. Yeah, but don't call it Idubbbz because they get very mad at you. They get very mad at you if you call it Idubbbz. That's because of Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's only a part of the conversation, right? But it is the same conversation, right? The Joe Rogan of the left conversation is a conversation that includes, like, leftists. Leftists just found their Joe Rogan, right? I remember when they were laughing about, like, people, like, liberals calling Hassan Joe Rogan of the left, like, as a slight or whatever. They're like, what? Ha 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 ha. Hassan's not Joe Rogan of the left. Obviously, it's Graham Plattner. It's obviously Graham Plattner. Think about it. Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's well understood. So last question for you, Representative, is, you know, when/if, but looking like when you get to Washington, what will be some of your first priorities you would like to work on there?
Oh, great question to happen at the end of an 18-minute interview about Chris Rabb's actual policies. Why didn't we start here? Because they wanted him to, like, co-sign Graham Plattner. Because they are the least vulnerable, so their votes are more independent of material conditions. That's not at all the case. White men votes are 100% dependent on material conditions. Like I think that's like 100%, like similarly, not as much, but similarly to everybody else. While we're talking about Plattner, like, I think like 12 of those 60 minutes so far.
There, how will you operate in a way that you think is
Also,
different?
I love dropping race baiting on the timeline. Mods, check who this is chatter. Check where this chatter comes from, please. Here, I'll do you a favor. Bro's job in race baiting on the timeline. Expect you to take it seriously as a leftist take. Okay. Oh, hold on. BRB.
Different from how a lot of other members operate.
Sure. Well, just to be clear, I'm not an optimist by nature, but there's no Republican on the ballot, and there are more raccoons than Republicans in my district. So I think it's safe to say that I'll be in Congress on January 3rd. So we have to de-Trumpify Washington, D.C. All of the choices, appointments, cuts, all of the structural fissures and such, we need to do what we can to restore or prepare for their restoration. And we also need to build a bold vision in a post-Trump world. And, you know, frankly, that may happen long before 2 years. What does that look like? So he's been a wonderful villain, but, you know, people are struggling. They need to know what Democrats envision for a society with people closest to the pain struggling like never before, and making sure that we are clear with that message and consistent, and make sure that we hit all of those people, particularly folks who, generally speaking, the Democratic Party counts out and disregards, who really should be centered. The people closest to the pain, young people, poor people, Black folk. I'm going to keep bringing up Black folk. If we do not take care of Black women, we will lose, and we do not deserve to lead if we do not understand the primacy of Black women. When we help Black women, we help everybody.
Future Congressman Chris Rabb, thank you so much for joining us and taking the time. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like.
What'd I miss? That don't deserve this guy. Clicked hard at the end.
Disregard. What does that look like? So he's been a wonderful villain, but, you know, people are struggling. They need to world arrest. We have Republicans in my district on the ballot, and there are more raccoons than Republicans in my district. So I think it's safe to say that I'll be in Congress on January 3rd. So we have to de-Trumpify Washington, D.C. All of the choices, appointments, cuts, all of the structural fissures and such, we need to do what we can to restore or prepare for their restoration. And we also need to build a bold vision in a post-Trump world. And, you know, frankly, that may happen long before 2 years. What does that look like? So he's...
Hold on, sorry, I missed something. The chat was in Graham's chat earlier saying that Sean was coping during the Graham speech. I didn't watch the Graham speech. Am I crazy? Am I tripping?
Been a wonderful villain, but, you know, people are struggling. They need to know what Democrats envision for society.
I didn't even talk about Graham winning. I said that was unsurprising. I've been saying that Graham Plattner was going to win for months.
With people closest to the...
Also, I went on MS Now today if you're interested in that. I mean, not particular. Oh, it's a long too. They talk about his controversy. Did he say, I'm sorry?
The pain struggling like never before, and making sure that we are clear with that message and consistent, and make sure that we hit all of those people, particularly folks who, generally speaking, the Democratic Party counts out and disregards, who really should be centered. The people closest to the pain, young people, poor people, Black folk. I'm going to keep bringing up Black folk. If we do not take care of Black women, we will lose, and we do not deserve to lead if we do not understand the primacy of Black women. When we help Black women, we help everybody.
Future Congressman Chris Rabb, thank you so much for joining us and taking the time. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment.
Yeah. I mean, obviously people have an issue with this and have a problem with this. That's not entirely surprising. Also, people were saying that Rabb lived up in that interview. I thought it was solid title. I mean, it's not the title. The title is just, you know, Fetterman vibes. DSA Dem won't defend Grand Platinum. It's just absolutely insane. That's craziness. DSA Dem won't defend Grand Platinum. That's what they get from. Isn't that crazy, bro? Imagine like being a black person who was accomplished, right? And you win an election as a progressive, and the only thing that a supposed progressive outlet wants to talk to you about is about this white man. And you're libbed up if you have an issue with it. For the comments saying, bro is a professional yapper. He thinks he's going to move his ideological opponents left while simultaneously dismissing his ideological allies. Simple, I don't know enough about Platinum's race would have sufficed. He didn't need to want a vague monologue that could be misconstrued about a race that he doesn't apparently know anything about. Dem establishment throwing a hissy fit over Janet Mills not getting the nomination in Maine. The Democrats' biggest problem is that they are ignoring what people want. This dude sounds like a liberal establishment. Whenever a guy says we need to have more conversations, you should stop believing anything they say going forward. This person is fine with doing nothing. This future congressman said literally nothing. The people don't choose. This dude is more than suspicious. Someone is paying this guy. Looking like a true corporate politician. What a betrayal. Like, I'm sorry, fuck these people. Like, genuinely. Fuck these people, fuck the white left. I'm on that train right now. You know what I mean? Like, they suck. They suck. They suck. Chris Rabb is more radical than Grand Platinum. Objectively speaking. Objectively speaking. If you don't glaze Platinum in public, you're a lib. No, for these reactionary people, yes. And this is what I've been getting, chat. Right? You're seeing Chris Rabb get what I've been getting as well. We're talking about Grand Platinum. Right? FD's been getting this, and we'll talk about Grand Platinum. Right? But like, there's going to be no introspection for why so many prominent black leftists, right? So many prominent black leftists has this take of suspicion when it comes to Grand Platinum. Now he's received no accountability because white people just keep caping for them. Because I'm sorry, they're fucking racist. Everybody had the most nuanced answers, and it's still not enough. He's the opposite of libbed up. They wanted him to swear fealty. As a black man, he wanted him to get on his hands and knees. That's it. They wanted Chris, because the only thing that Chris, this is Breaking Point's saying this outright. The only thing that a black leftist is good for is defending a fucking white left. That is it. That is the only thing the white left sees as useful from black leftists. And this interview is saying that extensively. If you are not a black leftist who gets on your hands and knees to defend some prominent white leftist, you are worthless to the movement. That is the way that black leftists are treated. And you're surprised when black people don't want to engage with the leftist movement. You're surprised when black people don't want to engage with the leftist movement. You're surprised when this movement is overwhelmingly white and you're getting called out for being racist every 2 weeks or whatever. Right? And it's so stupid because it's also self-defeating. So I've seen white leftists say that we need to focus on white men because white men are more likely to be socialists. There are more white socialists than there are black socialists, right? There are more white members of the DSA than there are black members of the DSA. So therefore, we need to be focusing on how to get white men. So they focus on how to get white men, and then there are less black people who get, you know, who want to identify as a socialist. Because nobody ever talks to them. Nobody ever engages with them. It's self-defeating. It's self-defeating. Right? And they're more worried about how they engage with and attract white men that they lose out on actually building coalitions with, I'm sorry, one of the most strongest, right, and coherent bases of support for the left in this country, which is black people. If you want to build a stronger leftist movement, you build a movement with black people. You build a movement with black people. But they don't want to do that. They don't want to do that. That's it, and then white people are centered. It makes them feel uncomfy. Yes. it's so stupid. It's so dumb that they want you to just pledge fealty to Graham Platter. And what pisses me off even more is that when there's like a Bad Banana or Cavernacle or like white people on Twitter who hate Graham Platter, they're ultra, right? They're ultras, they're purity testers and they're wreckers. When it's black people, they're still wreckers, but they're libs, right? Do you clock that? Do you see that? I see that, right? I see that. When I criticize Graham Platter, people call me a lib, not an ultra. I get called a lib. How does that make sense? How does that make sense? When I criticize Graham Platter for being in Blackwater, right? For doing 4 tours in the military, being a guard at Abu Ghraib, right? I'm a lib. But when Bada Banana criticizes Graham Platter for being part of Blackwater, doing 4 tours in the military, and being a guard at Abu Ghraib, he's called an ultra. Where does that the line come from? Where does that distinction come from? Reductionism and anti-intersectional analysis have become the default on this side, unfortunately. It's just it's stupid, right? It's dumb. It's also racist. It is racist. It is racist. That if you have a critique of Graham Platter and you're black, you're called a liberal, right? Because there's no other reason you would be critiquing Graham Platter, because black people love the Democrats, obviously, and you're black, so you must do it because of the Democrats. You must be doing it because of the Democrats. You're black and you're criticizing Graham Platter, you must be aligned with the Democrats. Why is somebody white criticizing Graham Platter? They're an ultra. They're so far left. It is necessary for white leftists to face material reality of marginalized people who have suffered in both black and brown communities in the Bureau core. Most definitely global South people. This is absolutely unacceptable to concede in the movement. I don't want to contribute to the political movement that doesn't represent me and my community and people part of my community to set some standards.
Every single day, Shank. I live as a capitalist.
Because I think about 32 months. And if you start thinking about 21 months.
Cadenza 23 just subscribed.
You know what they say, if you don't vote for Platt, you ain't black. Listen, my bad, black people don't want to join Plattwater. Anyway, I do want to look at this, which is a song's reaction to some of this, I think. And then look at this. So unrelated, but would it be right to say that the reason people don't run for office, including on the left, is because the personal lives and decisions get looked at through a major microscope? No, it's because they feel like government doesn't represent them. And it's meaningless and it's useless. People don't think like, I want to run for office, but my personal life is getting in the way. People don't think that. They think it's not going to do anything and it's meaningless, right? Because they don't trust the government to actually do stuff for them. Even Platter, I didn't think that. I mean, look at all the white men who run for office who have this insane past in history, right? It's the type of like, you know, the saying which is like, give me the audacity of a straight white man, right? Straight white men don't think about it. They don't think about, well, I want to run for office, but how would this look? That's not something that goes into their mind. You know? It's not. They just do it. Right? Black people look at the government and they're like, this government does not work for me. This government does not work for me. It does not serve me. Why would I give my time to it? And then they go and like, you know, get a job in their community. Because they're worried about like, you know, paying the bills. The issue is that there's also an extra layer that it's inherently a class barrier. Running for office is inherently a class barrier. I think that's a part of it. The harassment and scrutiny are worth it for a lot of people. No, I think you're wrong. That's not even in the conversation. That's like maybe top like number 8 out of 10. Right? Do you know how much a state senator gets paid in the North Carolina State Senate? $14,000. Which is why the North Carolina State Senate is a bunch of retirees. You know, you get $14,000 to be in North Carolina State Senate. You don't get paid a lot of money. You don't. Yes, a year. Well, no, not a year. A session. Right, so a 9-month session. You don't get paid when you're off session, I don't think. But it's not technically 9 months. It's however long the session is, right? The legislative session is. It can fluctuate and change on a variety of factors, right? But we'll say an average of 9 months. You're getting paid $40,000, which is why it's usually people who are like teachers who have a little bit of leeway, not like like college professors and stuff. When they're like tenured, they might run for office and do like a 1 or 2 adjunct positions on the side, right? People who own businesses, business owners who have their businesses working for them, they get the residual checks from that business. They go and they be a part of the state senate, right? People whose parents can afford to like sustain them because they're freaking boomers who are millionaires or whatever. People like that, right? It's costly to run for office. You don't make a lot of money running for office, especially local office. You know what I mean? I mean, in terms of why we get bad candidates too, like the bad candidates you're describing, they don't care if people look at their past lives because they have other motives. I feel like that would factor into people's decisions, making along with other factors like money and privilege. It's a part of the conversation, right? But it's more, it's less about like good people don't apply because people will look at their past. It's more bad people do apply because like not bad people, like immoral people or people who don't care about it will apply because they're the type of people who seek power. Right? It's like politics and running for office is self-selected. Right? It self-selects for people who want to hold power, who seek to hold power. That's why you get bad people in office oftentimes because they're the type of people who will see political power and be like, I want to get that. Give me power, right? It is like cops, right? The type of people who want to be cops, right, are the type of people who end up being cops most often. And those type of people are oftentimes bad people. It's very similar when it comes to politics. You know? So if I were to say the main barrier is not personal issues or anything close to it, it's financial. That's what I said. Yes. There's a huge financial burden. But all of that culminates into like why you have people not running for office. Right? Which is why there should be more infrastructure to getting people to run for local office and giving them the tools that they need to run for local office. Right? We have this like tailless mentality, which is just like we wait for somebody who self-selects as being a horrible person to run for office, and then we have to support them because there's nobody else, right? That is inherently broken. Inherently broken. It is an inherently broken system. The left, as a wider movement, should be putting up candidates. There should be infrastructure to put up candidates who actually genuinely care about these issues, who are accountable to these organizations, right? Who then can be pushed further left by the people on the ground and on the ground organization. You know? But here, I wanted to show this.
Chris Rabb against all enemies. Spoke. Yeah.
Oh, and ask thank you for the tier 1, by the way. Much appreciated.
Chris Rabb spoke.
I wanted to get you to weigh
about Plattner. My goat, Chris Rabb. I stand with Chris Rabb against all enemies.
I'll look at the chat.
Okay. If Chris Rabb has no defenders, that must mean I have died. I have perished. Okay. I will be the last standalone defender of Chris Rabb.
In on what's going on right now with Graham Plattner up in Maine, because I do think it has some important fissures here in terms of the direction of the Democratic Party. You know, his ideological program and yours not exactly the same, but you're more or less in the same lane and have, you know, similar views of the world, and certainly, you know, have been clear-cut, clear-throated opponents of genocide.
Are you only going to cover Plattner and never cover the increasing anti-trans violence? Yes. Is this just the Plattner show? Are you ever going to use your privileged position to cover the increasing anti-trans violence? Why don't you use your privileged position to cover the increase in anti-trans violence? More and more trans people are being murdered every month.
People take the time started donating to DSA, an actual left organizing group. We take the money. Would it be immortal? I don't have the power to make or break that decision.
I'm sorry. This is the Graham Plattner show. Yeah.
I am glad Hassan took the reins from me. I was tired of doing the Graham Plattner show. I retired like freaking, or no, I got fired like Scott Pelley.
For the last 5 hours, as you guys know, we've been doing Plattner only, and we're going to continue doing Plattner only. I apologize. This is the Plattner only show. It's just how it goes.
Of AIPAC funding and the influence of the Israel lobby. He has faced a number of allegations, some of which he's, you know, acknowledged that he had a very rough go of it after serving.
What is it about Graham Plattner that, like, this is literally the first time I'm covering Graham Plattner today when there's straight up a fucking primary taking place where people are voting for him? Like, it's been 5 hours. I've obviously talked about Iran, MSG, the Carmelo Anthony case, numerous other things throughout the process, Infantino, FIFA corruption, and like now, literally, it's the primary day, right? It's the primary day in Maine. People are voting for him right now. And after 5 hours, I briefly touch on the issue, and they're like, dude, this is literally all you cover every day, non-fucking stop. You cover every candidate who gets pushed back from the mainstream media, and today's Maine's primary day? Yes.
In the military, that he had a drinking problem, he has PTSD.
To be fair, I'm with Hassan on that. Just because people come into my chat and say the same thing. You want to talk about Graham Plattner a lot? No. Anyway.
That he engaged in toxic behavior in relation.
Ironically enough, Graham Plattner, one of the most...
That's exactly. Thank you for the 5 of the subs. Much appreciated. Use W. Yeah, but you're allowed. W.
Pro-trans, openly pro-trans candidates running on the Democratic Party ticket, but that's totally besides the point.
I will say, the bar is low. This is true.
You know, but
other aspects of which he's completely denied. There was an allegation from a Republican political operative that he had grabbed her by the shoulders forcefully. That
I am magnanimous and I am fair, and I will acknowledge. The bar is low. The bar is very low. It is true.
By the hand out of a cab, that he had put her arm behind her back and pushed her inside of a room. Again, she says this occurred. He denies it, and the New York Times was unable to.
Not pro-black though. I put that out there. That's not.
Confirm it. I wonder what you make of the allegations and also what has been seen as extreme scrutiny into his life that doesn't seem to be matched with a level of scrutiny into others who do not challenge the oligarchy and do not challenge, you know, AIPAC and the status quo on Israel as aggressively as he does.
Yeah, you know, this is challenging for me because I've felt that folks who have been identified as hard scrabbled, popular.
Before a song like is 100% right. I saw one person call it Idubbbz. I mean, that's just how it is, you know.
Left of center white guys get far more leeway than folks like me, black progressives. And And that's a double standard that is largely based on race. And I think that's a conversation we need to have. If I had some,
I see a lot of yeps and a lot of bass and he right. Where is this energy for when I say it? You know what I think it is? Racism. Continue.
problematic tattoo that related to white folk, I don't think I would be viable, even in a majority black district, because I think the money would not be there for me to run the campaign I needed. I think there's a clear double standard that the left has to talk about as it relates to our racial politics and what is acceptable.
I mean, everything he said is correct, by the way. It's not like he's wrong. It's literally true. One of the greatest examples of this is Summer Lee, okay? Summer Lee is one of the best congresspersons in the United States of America, okay? And she never gets coverage. Like, never, ever, ever gets coverage.
And I tell you, I've said this for weeks, and people have yelled at me and crucified me for this take. I've been saying that Graham Plattner gets the defense that he gets because he's white. And people get so mad. So mad. During the Carmelo Anthony case was also on some racist BS. It was kind of crazy. Yeah, I tuned in for a second. Then I had to tune out. Right? I think someone's talking about like just the disparity of like the way that like cases like this are covered for like, or even engaged with for white people versus black people. I saw a commenter or a chatter say, but like, you have to admit, you can't just stab people. And then I had to call it out. I had to be like, all right, we're done. We're done. There's a reason I didn't cover it here, because I had to get upset. I think he's also gets defended because people are desperate for authentic sounding voices on the left. No, because that was the case. They would also defend Chris Rabb. They'd also talk about Summer Lee. There is a disparity in how Graham Plattner is covered versus everybody else. Literally everybody else. Even other white people. Right? It's purely because of optics. It's not because he is authentic. It's because he appears authentic because he's white. Because whiteness is authenticity. White supremacy deems it. You know what I mean? But when you see a black person in a suit in politics, you think establishment. You think, not authentic. You think bought out. You think paid for, right? You see a white guy who is running around here saying basically the exact same things. You think that's a real man. That's a real American. That's why Trump did so. We understand it when we see Trump, right? Trump did super well, and his base was like authentic. He's authentic. He's a real man. There was nothing about Trump that was authentic, right? Not a single thing about Trump was authentic. But he was seen as authentic because he's white. And white people identify with that. They look at him and they see their neighbors. They see their cousins, their uncles. You know what I mean? They see a black man in a suit and think, that's weird. That can't be authentic. Because they have preconceived notions and conceptions about black people.
Coverage. This is something that Cori Bush also took issue with as well in our conversation, if you recall, especially when it comes to fundraising. It's just black candidates, specifically black insurgent candidates, because like Machine Politics has a fundraising vehicle built into it, but black insurgent candidates, black anti-establishment candidates, they don't get the shine. They don't get the coverage, and they certainly don't get the infrastructural support that they need. They have to create it on their own. And on top,
I just want to point out, I had said this, and I've been saying this, and I got yelled at. I just want to point that out. This is not like I'm vindicated moment, right? But I just want to point out that having this, and even if these chatters just saw Chris Rabb said it, which a lot of these chatters did, they still wouldn't take to it, right? They only are taking to it because Hassan is co-signing it. Because Hassan said, I agree with Chris Rabb 100%. I'm behind Chris Rabb. right? Because when FD said it, there was pushback. When I said it, there was pushback. When Chris Rabb said it and these chatters watched it themselves, there was also pushback. Right? But there's never any introspection for these chatters to think, huh, maybe I should listen to Black leftist voices. Before he watched it, chatters were on Rabb calling him the next Akeem because he won't glaze Plattner. It's just crazy. It's crazy. And I don't understand how you can't expect, I don't understand how people don't expect Black people to not want to engage with them. Right? Remember when we were scrolling through threads and I showed you Black people who were like, who had this preconceived notion about who Hassan was and how Hassan was, right? And then I saw some Hassan stands in their thread replies being like, well, obviously you're just watching clipped out of context stuff. You have no idea who Hassan actually is. Because they could not ever understand about how Black people came to these conclusions in the first place. It's kind of like that. There's never any actual introspection in these chatters that think, huh, maybe there's something here. Maybe there's something here. Maybe there's something actually here that I should actually listen to. But either there are Black people who ride for Plattner. There aren't many Black people that right? Because most Black people, even Black people who are like, you know, I support Grand Plattner because he's the lesser evil or whatever, they still acknowledge that like the way that Grand Plattner is defended for all of his controversies is something that this day would not get. You know what I mean? Excuse me. The majority, but there are some. I'm sure there are some. Boycotting the Baines in the race because the Denims didn't nominate a Black man. I'm with you, chatter. Me too.
Top of that, they have to battle obvious forces of racialized animus, systemic discrimination, the entire fucking process.
Like you said, Platter is. All right. Was I reading? I lost it. I remember what I was reading. Oh, I just said Platter made to scratch a white people's itch by how he presents himself. Yeah.
And it's doubly fucked up for Black women. It's like exceptionally harder for Black women. The only time that insurgent candidates ever get coverage, if they're Black, is if they're being presented in a negative manner in a more mainstream setting.
Or when white leftists want to deploy them as a shield for other white people. That's it. Can they cover them differently? I'll give Hassan credit. He does. He does. Hassan is one of the only people that I see cover Cori Bush. You know, Summer Lee, Ilhan Omar. The mainstream media just doesn't. Right? But like, that's kind of the issue, is that Hassan will do good coverage of them. But like the community would like bring up like Summer Lee and Cori Bush whenever like Hassan is being criticized. You know what I mean? It's just like, you know, you can like talk about these people normally. Like you can like actually you can actually like, you know, discuss their policies and why it's good. They don't have to only be talked about as in reference to like a white leftist. That's okay. Breaking points, majority report, etc. That's why I was curious about this. I'll take it back if I'm wrong. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 14 videos on Graham Plattner. Two videos on Chris Rabb. Does that make sense? Do you see that disparity? Right? And only talking about him after he won. APAC blown out in a crushing PA loss. Only talking about him after he won. Here. This is about, I guess this is about Hassan basically, but 1, 2, 3. 3 videos on Abdul. I did interview him before also. Did they? I didn't see it. I'll take your word for it. Right? But that's kind of the issue. Right? That's kind of the issue. Is that the way that Graham Plattner is discussed, right, positively and negatively, holistically, is just at a higher standard than like other candidates. There's a lot of emphasis on the main race specifically, and that I think is like as rightful frustration right behind it. Like I think Black people are fair and justified in frustrating or being frustrated, right, by that dynamic. You know, people are also being so disingenuous. I assume Chris Rabb was not a congressperson, like a state rep. Like, why is he less important? I got duped. Chris Rabb jokingly said President Plattner one day. I just wonder why. It's because he is white. This I'm telling you the answer, not you specifically. I'm telling you the answer, right? It is because he is white. Vermont says 68 mentions of Plattner versus 2 mentions of Rabb. Yeah. It's whiteness. Right? There is I chat, if you've listened to me talk about this, I've said it so many times. It is because they find a usefulness in Graham Plattner's identity. It is objectively identity politics. They find Graham Plattner's identity useful in growing the wider leftist movement. They think Graham Plattner can do well in attracting young white men who are leaving the Republican Party to socialism. And that's why he's being defended so much. They want to appeal more to white vets. Not even vets. It's just young white men. It is the Joe Rogan of the left conversation again. That's why you saw people so quick to turn on Chris Rabb to defend Graham Plattner. Right? It's specifically because, right, there is a usefulness for Graham Plattner in his positionality. Right? He's more useful to the movement than Chris Rabb is. Not because he's a Senate candidate. Chris Rabb is a congressional candidate or a House representative candidate, right? It's specifically because they can use what's it called? His identity, right? His whiteness to further their goal. Second, Black socialist to defend a guy who isn't a socialist. Exactly. Yes. Exactly what it is. And then we are surprised when Black leftists don't want to be a part of the movement. I mean, we literally just saw the FD video where he was like, I'm not a part of y'all movement, right? I'm checking out from white leftists. I've been saying it for going on like 9 months at this point. right? I've been talking about how I'm checked out of this movement. And this is the perfect example of that. The perfect example of that. What you're going to do is you're going to lose all of the marginalized people in your movement, right? Black people are going to check out and do their own stuff, organizing their own communities. What do I do? Notice for the movement a minute ago? Oh, I just quiet quit. And then like the movement's not going to work. Also a larger algorithmic push to have white leftists be drivers for most of these videos. Indigenous and black leftist candidate interviews on a silent channel barely crack 100K views. It's not algorithmic though, right? You're not wrong, but it's not algorithmic. It's what the audience wants. It's the white audience. The white audience doesn't care about black kids. They don't.
June Atom just subscribed.
Not for Hassan's lack of trying, right? And I will give Hassan credit on that. Hassan does try, right? Hassan does see this disparity and he wants to correct this disparity. He is attempting. The audience is rejecting it. The audience is rejecting it. They are. They don't want it. They do not want it. And that's kind of the problem. Right? Because nothing is going to change. You cannot have socialism without including and involving black people. Right? But the audience does not want to be uncomfortable. The audience, yeah, exactly. The audience doesn't want to be uncomfortable. They don't want to confront their own biases. Right? This isn't just Hassan's audience. Right? This is the Breaking Point's audience, the Cognitive audience, even the Majority Report audience to a certain extent. Right? This is not even just audiences on Twitch or on YouTube or on online. This is like happening in DSA meetings, right? This is happening in on the ground organizing spaces, right? White leftism is not like doing what it needs to do to grow the movement in the way that it needs to grow. Right? Leftists will cry about the fact that black people are so stuck and adhere to the Democratic Party, but then won't talk to them, won't engage with them, won't try to build a wider movement. But they will do it for the white rural working class, right? Working class. That's it.
So he's technically not wrong. Obviously, this is a Senate seat. It's a high-profile Senate seat. That's part of the reason why there's a lot of controversy. The Israel lobby is obviously coming after him pretty aggressively. But yeah.
I disagree with Hassan. Not by the idea that the Israel lobby does not like Grant Plattner, but just that being the reason why there's a lot of controversy. There was a lot of controversy before he got a hyperfixation on by the Israel lobby, right? There was leftist controversy when he first announced, right? He announced in, I believe it was August. No, it was September. September of last year. September, October, November, and December were all leftist focused controversy, right? It was leftist saying that it's bad that he was a part of Black Lives. It was leftist saying that it was bad that he did 4 tours in the military to volunteer to kill people after he knew that it was bad. It was leftists who said that him being a guard at Abu Ghraib was bad, right? That was leftist concerns and critiques. And what should have happened is he should have been backed by an organization. That organization should have seen that backlash, pulled him out, and put in somebody else in his place in September. But that obviously didn't happen. And then in January, February, then the Democrats were like, okay, well now primary season's coming up soon, right? We have to start finding stuff again to be anti-Plattner, right? It was then that it started to really blow up. And the Israel lobby did hate Grant Plattner. This is true. I'm not going to try to deny that the Israel lobby did not like Grant Plattner or whatever. right? But it did come from a more internal left-wing discussion before that. June Adam, thank you for the 2 months.
I mean, look at Daria Lisa, Afro-Latina, running against Espaillat right now.
I don't like the word
The
accused
only
of being
major
pro-Israel lobby if we critique him. I stop letting it affect me.
coverage that she gets is often negatively framed, and it's really interesting because
I disagree. I think there should be more room for leftists who are regular people with flaws, and all should be backed by the left. Well, Plattner is not a regular person with flaws. Better. You said I disagree, and then had an entirely separate statement from what we were talking about. That has a lot of flaws. Graham Plattner has done evil things. Like there's like call that like a flaw. I think it's a little bit silly. Like there is evil in his past, for lack of a better term. You know what I mean? Which I've at no point ever said that Graham Plattner could not have changed. What evil things? I think joining Blackwater is an evil thing. His flaws are a serial killer. Allegedly. He's not confirmed his serial killer status or not. Right? But again, I've never at any point said that Graham Plattner could not have changed. You know? That's how we didn't say join the military. I think you need to consider your argument about Plattner being a white-centric candidate, the fact that he's running in what I believe is the whitest state in the country. I don't think I need to consider anything. That doesn't change the issue is not Graham Plattner run. Chat, I don't care about the electoral system or status of the system, right? And my argument is not about electoralism as an argument, right? I'm not sitting here saying Graham Plattner shouldn't run. Graham Plattner would be bad to run. That's not what I'm basing my argument off of. My argument is exclusively that defending Graham Plattner and his behavior is bad. It's that simple. It's that simple. It's the way that people are defending and caping for Graham Plattner's behavior is bad. And they should stop doing that. And that there are good and valuable critiques that you should be able to make about Graham Plattner because his behavior is bad and was bad. And he has not atoned for that behavior, right? I don't care if people in Maine love that, right? If he was running in Alabama and he was like, I'm a Klan member, and people in Alabama love that, that would still be a problem. I need to use different states in Alabama. Always Alabama with you, yeah. Fine, Arkansas or whatever. You know? I think materially letting him be attacked and potentially losing would cause more harm than us defending him. I do not care about Graham Plattner winning or losing as insofar as like the moral argument of it. You know what I mean? Like it's the same conversation of like Kamala Harris needs to win because Donald Trump is better. That's that same argument. Right? My worldview is very simple. It's if you cause harm to marginalized people, let me know if you heard this one before, you need to be held accountable for that harm. Apologize, change your behavior, and then you can move on. That's it. Right? And if you're unable to do that, I do not trust your character judgment. Right? Graham Plattner proclaiming to be better than any other candidate, right? It remains to be proven because he cannot seem to acknowledge the harm that he's caused. All he needs to do is acknowledge the harm that he's caused, apologize for causing that harm, and then move forward from that. My issue is not, we're barely talking about Graham Plattner. Right now, I'm talking about the defense of Graham Plattner. I'm talking about people who are defending Graham Plattner as if he did nothing wrong. You are arguing to me about why it's important for him to win, right? And that's, when I say I don't care, I'm saying that that's not what I'm talking about, right? I'm not talking about whether or not it is important for Graham Plattner to win. I'm not talking about whether or not Graham Plattner should still be running or should drop out. I'm saying that people defending Graham Plattner, right, and his awful, evil, bad behavior uncritically is bad. Does that make sense? That is a bad thing. And you are able to want Graham Plattner to win while also engaging with, right, the idea that he did bad stuff. Do you think that people push back primarily because they don't get the distinction you're making? No, I think they're doing it because they have the. I think that they're doing it because they have a expressed goal of, I don't care about your issues with Graham Plattner. I want a white man to win. That's it. They are unprincipled. Because I have described this in a million different ways, numerous times, right? We saw Chris Rabb describe it very succinctly in a way that I think is honestly too nice for Graham Plattner to deserve, and he was still hit with the same thing, right? These people don't care about criticism of Graham Plattner. They want you to shut up about Graham Plattner so they can get their white man to win, so that they can help their movement grow. They don't care about the marginalized people in that movement. They don't care about the people that Graham Plattner has harmed in the past. They don't care about anything except for making sure that they get free healthcare. Let's call it like it is. These are selfish people. They are selfish people who want their free healthcare. That's it. They don't care about whether or not Graham Plattner will actually be a principled member of the socialist movement to push for the end of oppression for all marginalized people. They don't care about that. They see white men say free healthcare, they say yes, please. And they look at anybody who actually wants to hold him accountable for his behavior so that he can be more consistent in the future. And they're like, you're getting in the way of my free healthcare. It is inherently a selfish ideology. That is it. That's it. It is inherently selfish. They want to have their stupid free healthcare because that's all that matters to them, because they're not marginalized in any other way. They're not faced with racial oppression, right? They're not faced with they're only faced with class oppression. Their primary oppression is class oppression, and they want that fixed. I've described this numerous times. And so they look at a white man and they see how he can attract other white men to their movement so that they can push forwards the ending of their specific types of oppression, right? And they're like, I want that specifically. It doesn't matter if Graham Plattner is not a committed anti-Zionist. It doesn't matter if Graham Plattner is not a committed socialist. It doesn't matter to them. All they need for him to do is to appeal to white people. White people are still the majority in this country, and then build a white movement around white identitarianism, right, and white issues, and push for white policies that fix that issue. That's it. That's all that they care about. It's the centering of whiteness. That's why any black person who has the audacity to say, I'm not the biggest fan of this Graham Plattner guy, is immediately thrown out of the movement. Right? Because it's not about actually interrogating whether or not Graham Plattner is actually genuine in his beliefs. It doesn't matter to them. All that matters is that Graham Plattner is going to get them that free healthcare. That's it. That is it. And that is all. That's all that matters. To be fair, it's impossible to know as genuine his beliefs are until he's elected. That's wrong. That's incorrect. Inherently so. Right? Did you believe Trump when he said he was an anti-war, he would be an anti-war president? When Trump was like, no new wars, you're like, well, there's no way to know if he's telling the truth or not. No idea. We have to wait and see if he gets elected. He said no new wars, so he must believe no new wars. Or did you look at the past history that he engaged with society with, right? And see that the party that he's running under, right? And the things that he is saying otherwise, and say, yeah, no, you obviously don't believe that. Obviously, you don't think that that's the case. I also know somebody's belief, except for action they take, know what they know. That's not true. You can make a distinction based on what they are saying. This is how politics works. Because they past action. Oh, okay. Then yes, you're exactly. Then you are correct. Sorry, I'm popping off a little bit. Are we supposed to know that Fetterman wouldn't be a Zionist? All the Zionists think that before getting elected? Are you an ultra? Exactly. To be fair, that's what people who like Fetterman were saying. To be fair, any political movement in Maine is going to be extremely white. That's not what I'm saying. You don't understand what I'm saying. They don't care about Maine, chatters. If you were in Maine, I promise you, they don't care about Maine. They don't care about you. They care about using Graham Plattner to get somebody who lives in California. Somebody who lives in Oregon, a white guy who lives in Oregon who is like, I hate the Republicans now. That's what Graham Plattner is useful for. They want Graham Plattner to be the face of the movement. And I'm not even making this up. Oregon's also very white. You're not listening to me. You are not listening. This is not about a specific state or a specific community. This is about they want Graham Plattner as a white man to check. Most of the country is white, objectively speaking, right? There is still 67% white people in this country of all racial dynamics. Most of the country is white. They want to use Graham Plattner to appeal to those people. Do you understand how that's stupid? And objectively racist. To be like, well, most of the country is white, so I want to use this white man to outreach to those people when they are the least marginalized people out of the entire country. Is that a leftist movement that centers whiteness? Was they here? The white left. White leftists. Crystal Ball is a perfect example of this, from what we saw here. Anybody defending Graham Plattner? These people. These people want Graham Plattner because they find Graham Plattner to be useful to the wider movement. This is the movement. They want Graham Plattner to normalize white trash people of socialist things. Is not the same. No, it is the same. They're saying Graham Plattner is the MAGA whisperer. That's what they want him to do. They want him to be the MAGA whisperer. Plattner is useful though. Then you're the type of people I'm talking about. I'm describing you then, chatter. That's what I'm describing. Literally, actually, that's what I'm describing. They see Plattner as useful, and therefore, anybody who criticizes Graham Plattner is getting in the way of the movement that they're trying to build, even if that critique is constructive. That's the problem. That's the issue. They view Graham Plattner as useful, and so they will defend Graham Plattner on everything that he does because he is useful. And they view any critique, valid or not, as a hurdle that needs to be usurped. Oh, that's fair. I'm fine with critiques of Platter, but he is useful. Then what are you saying? You're just describing what I'm saying. How is Platter more useful than Charles Booker, the other Senate progressive? Because he's white. Charles Booker is not white. They don't think that black people have what it takes to attract the demographic that they actually care about, which is white people. That's it. Not so much as somebody who isn't particularly leaning anyway on a Platter. Like I particularly vote for him, obviously. But in what are better ways to hold candidates accountable without risking electoral prospects, or is it worth that risk to ensure authenticity? This is a great question. I'm of the mind that I'm of the mind that accountability is necessary, not to ensure authenticity, but to ensure that you actually get policies passed that you actually stand for, right? You need to hold your candidates accountable. You should throw them in the fire to see how they react, right? And the perfect time to do that is on the campaign trail, right? It's a necessary part of politics. Necessary. You know? It is. I agree. That's all my take is. My issue is when I was trying to do exactly that, right? I get met with hostility, like I'm trying to like ruin the movement. Graham Plattner was not asked about his stint in Blackwater for like 8 months. Went on a number of different leftist broadcasts. It took like 8 months for him to even be asked about his stint in Blackwater. How is that constructive? If you understand that there are things that he has done that are reprehensible, and you won't try to hold him accountable for that. It was a call in from viewers. No, that was about his tattoo. There's a Blackwater fridge magnet and was like, technically I wasn't in Blackwater. Yes. People are say they agree. Meanwhile, they'll lose the show. As soon as you criticize Plattner, let's be real, I'd be taken seriously at this point. I'm just trying to get people to understand that that's what the beef is, right? The beef and the issue that people have is that there's inconsistency, right? People's like principles go out of the window when it comes to Graham Plattner. I was asked when white leftists if Plattner turns out to be a Fetterman. Yeah, but they won't care, Shatter. They will just pretend like they never supported him, and then they'll just move on. Because there's never any introspection for them either. They'll just pretend like they never supported him, or they'll pretend like they supported him just a little bit, and then he lied to them, and then he had a stroke, so that actually they could have never have foreseen this happening in the first place, and then they'll just move on. So I agree that you should get your questions answered. I do agree that his stint in Blackwater, stint as a bodyguard or a State Department was reprehensible. Then you are insane. I'm sorry, you are literally insane. If you don't think joining the child killing, like entity of Blackwater is reprehensible, then we're not a part of the same movement. Genuinely speaking, you and I are not a part of the same movement. If you cannot see Blackwater as reprehensible, we're not. Objectively speaking, this is akin to me talking to a Zionist who's defending the IDF. It just is. Like, you might not know what Blackwater has done. Maybe that's what it is. In which case, I suggest that you like educate yourself about what Blackwater has done. But like joining Blackwater is 100% reprehensible. 100% completely reprehensible. If any prime military contractors and equating them to serving the country was gotta be blue MAGA, heel turn of the century. They go both ways. If he gets elected and shows himself to be a principal leftist, what then? Then good for him. He did what he was supposed to do. Right? The problem is that there's no evidence that he's going to do that because politicians don't do that. Yeah, if he gets elected and says exactly what he's saying on the campaign trail and does exactly that, then yeah, he'll be the first politician literally ever to do that. Like the first politician in existence forever Like, ever to do that. Like, politicians don't do that. They don't do that. They do not do that. They do not get in and then do what they said in office. None of them do that. It was run by Obama. This was years after Blackwater changed names, and his material actions were not of any child killing, therefore he's not reprehensible. Chatter. So he can be reprehensible for his actions. Do you defend like somebody who's in the IDF as a secretary? Oh, they were just in the IDF as a secretary, so therefore joining that entity is not reprehensible? Like, what are we talking about here? It is an evil, reprehensible entity. It's bad. You think Ela Klein is not reprehensible for her role in the IDF? Like, and even if you think that, right? He lied about it. He lied about it. He lied about it. He lied about being a part of Blackwater. You should absolutely push him on his background from a left-wing perspective if he's being held up as a representative of the left, even as a non-leadership position. And that is all that I'm saying. And my issue is nobody else does that. If IDF soldier came out against IDF, I would. Yeah, but he didn't do that, Chatter. He did not come out against Blackwater. Do you understand that? Do you understand what I'm saying? He did not do that. Did not do that. He didn't do that. Yeah, if an IDF soldier says, yes, it was a mistake, I should have been a conscientious objector, I should have never joined in the first place, right? That would be one thing. But he didn't do that. He did not say I should not have joined Blackwater. He didn't say it was a mistake for him to join Blackwater. He didn't say that he knew better and he shouldn't have joined again. Right? He said, I was there for 6 months and I got bored, so I left. He's not doing that right now. Like he's they're still operating at 80 right now. It's so dumb. I'm not saying anything crazy, bro. He does not have to be anti-multiracial conflict platform because the white leftists think that he's aesthetically useful and talk about his veteran status to get shots on board. Exactly. See, you get it. You understand exactly what I'm saying. It doesn't seem like it's too difficult to understand what I'm saying. This is exactly what I'm saying. Exactly. He's useful. They find him useful. So they don't care about his past. Which is why it always changes. It's always like, oh, well, you know, he wasn't a part of Blackwater, but if he was, he apologized for it. And if he did it, it wasn't that bad, actually, because Blackwater wasn't really a problem back then. Oh, yeah, we watched this. We covered this multiple times. This is him lying about being a part of Blackwater. When, like, he is, before joining, wearing a Blackwater hat and saying that he wants to join Blackwater, right? And then years later, joining Blackwater, and then having a Blackwater magnet on his refrigerator. This is a Blackwater defense. This is a defense of Blackwater. Here.
Shoot, what can tell us? We got a whole bunch on, your service and then also your time with the Blackwater offshoot, what Constellus, I think it was called. One of them, so from Halal Flow says, like, how does someone with your worldview end up working for Blackwater? I think a lot of people on the left would find that helpful to hear. They're worried you might be another Fetterman. Man, Fetterman is haunting.
There's a lot of trauma.
So much trauma.
I feel it too. There's a lot of trauma there.
He says, but I don't think you are. There were already signs of who Fetterman was when he was running and caving to DMFI, pro-Israel lobby.
Yeah, not to mention that whole incident where he tried to murder a random black guy in his neighborhood. Yeah,
Not
there was,
that
mentioned
was
enough.
kind
there
of a
was
red
that as
flag.
well.
Maybe
Not
a
mentioned
little more. He said you touched
And I
on
have
the
to remind you, these people got fooled by Fetterman. These are the exact people that got fooled by Fetterman, by the way. I just have to point that out there.
this a bit during your last appearance on the show when you talked about your U.S. military service, but we didn't go into much into this the State Department security contractor. So, who did you work for? Why and why? And for people who are skeptical of American empire, why should that not be disqualifying?
So, I never worked for Blackwater. This is I've been, like, I see this everywhere, and I'm always like, oh, for God's sake.
That's dishonest, by the way. That's dishonest. That is dishonesty.
The company that we all know is Blackwater, the one that Jeremy Scahill wrote about back in the late 2000s. That company, Eric Prince's little kind of warlord fantasy, that company essentially went away after 2012.
This is wrong and a lie and not true. He's lying here as well. Or he's stupid. It's not true. You made a whole chart to show that was not true. I did. Right? You're not going to out Blackwater me, Chad, in case you're wondering. If you want to try to defend this. You're not going to do that. You're not doing that.
Turn into GDS manufacturing.
You're not doing it. You're not doing it. You're not doing it. I've spent more time than I would like to admit researching the intricacies of Blackwater. I just have. Right? He's not telling the truth. He's being dishonest here. Constellas, right, was a offshoot of an offshoot of an offshoot of Blackwater. It was. I actually talked about Constellas specifically after or during the Academy section. Right? Because it was first Blackwater, turned into Z Services. It combined with Constellas to become Academy before he joined. Right? And then after he joined, it was like an offshoot of the Academy branch.
Manufacturing. We saw
right. It's so he's being dishonest or he's caving for Blackwater for some reason.
And it was sold. I forget who bought it. There were several iterations afterwards, similar, like same facility down in North Carolina. And this is something that I think gets lost in all of this. The State Department has contracts for high threat security. They don't do it in-house. And the contracts were written with very specific requirements about what kind of training people have to receive, what kind of background they have to have. It's all around combat backgrounds, combat arms, special operations, infantry, that kind of thing. And so they've maintained those contracts. There were only a few companies for a long time who could meet any of those requirements. Triple Canopy, Blackwater back in the day, and then...
With your points here, I'm curious about your suggested next steps. Is he cast out of the movement or just held more accountable? How are these, those that are ostracized, that are part of the movement, for support of Plattner brought back in? Well, first of all, nobody's going to be ostracized from the movement for their support of Plattner. That is the movement. They are the movement, right? What you're currently seeing is people who don't like Graham Plattner being kicked out of the movement for their critique of Graham Plattner. That's what's currently happening. You know? I think the opposite. I know that's not what you're saying. I'm just describing you that currently, right now, like... you're right. You're right. I didn't read it wrong. For its support of Plattner. You're right. You are correct. I did misread your thing. I think it meant for their support of Graham Plattner. You are right. I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. Interesting question. I think, first of all, understand. I think, okay, Good point. I think Hassan actually did this kind of well here. I was about to nuke you. No, I wasn't gonna nuke them. Here. This is what Hassan covered and talked about. Let's ban Sean. That's crazy.
It's something that I actually respect and have paid attention. And your community's impact or not, powerlessness. Praxis, it's appropriate to use the term Zog slave, okay? And harassing.
This is about Bada Panada. And I am slightly curious about this full conversation. But I do want to get into the Plattner side of the conversation.
If that's your peak activism, if the peak of your praxis is getting a fucking YouTube commentary person to write a critical article about an American Senate candidate, you're not doing anything. You have already recognized that you're just circle jerking into the fucking wind. You've already recognized your powerlessness. Okay? Bullying YouTubers is not fucking praxis, dumbass. Whether that's legitimate or not, whether it was actually your impact and your community's impact or not, you should probably prioritize better targets. I'm not even saying that that is the reason why FD wrote an anti-Graham Plattner article. FD has been critical of Graham Plattner. So has Sean the Black has also been critical. As a matter of fact, a lot of black leftists have been critical of Graham Plattner from the jump, a lot more than myself. It's something that I actually respect and have paid attention to. Okay? It's not new. The notion that these guys are taking credit for it now is very silly.
Yeah, and now Chris Rabb. Exactly. And now Chris Rabb. And so, like, again, I'm not saying, and I've never said that you can't like Graham Plattner. You know what I mean? I've never said that you can't like Graham Plattner. I've never said that it's wrong for you to like Graham Plattner. I may have my disagreements, but I've never said that you cannot like Graham Plattner. And I say he comes with a lot of baggage. He started multiple tours in the U.S. Army, worked with Blackwater, not to mention Nazi tattoo. But I think everyone should be given a chance. I used to work at Lockheed. I still don't regret my decision until last year. And I used to think that I was doing a good thing, but I got my eyes on things on Hassan. So I'm charitable to people. Also, seeing so many GOP and Israeli orgs go after him makes me support him more. But you realize that you're not running for office, Chatter. You're not running for office, right? Your introspection and coming to a moral position does not inherently mean that, like, you get to get power and then maybe change in the future, right? I've never said that he can't change his mind, but he will never change his mind if people are saying that he shouldn't have to defend himself and he should never apologize because he's going to mess up his chances at an election, right? Like, I don't disagree with you, right? But I think that you're doing Graham Plattner a disservice, not you specifically. I think that you're doing a Graham Plattner a disservice if you don't even engage with the critique that does exist in saying that, like, the critique is inherently false because you're ruining his chances of becoming a politician. You know? That I agree with. That's literally my only take. That has been my only take. Right? My issue with this has been very little on Graham Plattner specifically. He's just a vector of my anger at this point, right? The issue is people defending Graham Plattner, right? And yelling at people who are criticizing Graham Plattner. Doing so uncritically is bad for the movement. It's bad. It's not good, right? It hurts Graham Plattner and it hurts his own individual growth. It hurts the wider movement, right? And the fact that it's happening because Graham Plattner is a white man who can attract other white men is based in racial animosity, right? It's racist. You know, what should have happened, and I will describe to you what should have happened. Graham Plattner should have announced that he was running, right? And then a month later, when the Blackwater stuff came out and the tattoo stuff came out, the left should have had him on their interviews and was like, people are saying that you joined Blackwater. I want to give you a chance to speak for it and respond to this. He gives an answer. If it's a bad answer, they push back on it so that he realizes that he needs the support of the people criticizing him to win, and so he changes his mind. Does that make sense? That's what should have happened in October of last year. That's what I was saying in October of last year. Would that have changed his mind? If he wanted to be a politician, yes. Right? He's a politician who needs their support to win. Does that make sense? If he doesn't do that, then it shows, it perfectly demonstrates. If at that moment he doesn't change his mind, it demonstrates that we don't need him. That makes sense? If people try to hold him accountable for his joining the military after knowing that it was bad, doing 4 tours after knowing that it was bad, joining Blackwater after knowing that it was bad, if you tell that to him and he says, F you, I'm not changing my mind, right? Then we should not be supporting this person in the first place. And at that point, in October of last year, we find someone else. We do a huge push in Maine to get somebody else to run at that point. Does that make sense? Maybe I'm too used to these sorts of situations where making people more defensive. I feel like I've never seen the opposite because it never happened. Right? And also, he's being defensive now, currently, but to like very little pressure. Again, if he's defensive when somebody tries to hold him accountable for his past, he's not the guy people claim that he is. You know what I mean? If he does an interview and they're like, hey, you were in Blackwater, he was like, no, I'm not, I know I wasn't. And they're like, yes, you were, right? People have an issue with this. And he's like, shut up, I'm gonna run it anyway. I love Blackwater so much. We drop it. But if he gets asked this question, and he's like, no, I wasn't part of Blackwater. And they're like, yes, you were. This is why it was bad. And he was like, okay, I can see that. I understand how people got there. Then it could be like, okay, this guy can be reasoned with. This guy heard our critiques from the left and internalized them. Maybe this is a good candidate for us. And then we keep him. You know what I mean? But none of that happened. Nobody asked him critically about his 4 tours. Nobody asked him critically about joining Blackwater or being a guard at Abu Ghraib or the Nazi tattoo or any of that. The only person that I've seen do that in all the stuff that I've seen about Graham Plattner, the only person to have done that was the New York Times interview. That is the only person that I've seen do that. Aside from the election calculation, this line of questioning is necessary to determine whether or not he's useful to the anti-war movement. Exactly. Exactly. Another thing that really gets to me is when people claim that the average American veteran is the same as a Blackwater mercenary. The two are different and one is far more extreme than the other. Yeah, but even then, he's even worse than the average American veteran too. Most vets in America did not see combat. Most vets in America were not infantry. You know what I mean? Objectively, like statistically speaking, most vets did not see combat. They were not machine gunners. They were not like outward like killing people. Right? I wouldn't say far more extreme. They all serve the same imperial goal. That is true, right? But there is a difference. There is a difference between somebody being like, I'm joining because I need to pay for college, or even I'm joining because I want a new car, and I'm joining because I want to kill people really badly. There is a difference there. I'm not saying it's substantial, but it is slightly different. Right? And Graham Plattner, like, one is worse. And Graham Plattner was the worst. And then he went back again, which makes him even worse. And then back again, which makes him even worse. And then back again, makes him even worse. And then got Nazi tattoo, which makes him even worse. And then left, and then joined Blackwater, making it even worse. Like, there are very few people in this country that have done so much heinous things as Graham Plattner. It's really bad. It's like they haven't found any of his old squad mates to verify his tattoo story. I mean, they probably still have it too, so they probably don't want it to be seen. Because they were like, yeah, it was a Nazi tattoo. I'm not showing anybody that. Remember how Sean told me that Army reserves aren't really reserves? They probably get sent out as body fodder. Yes. Yes. Did you see this? What is it? That's funny. Everyone's still going about Plattner morning after his primary win. You want to talk about P Hustle? You want to talk about P Hustle? I barely walked into the building. Everyone seems to believe that Plattner sent photos of himself to women, calling him Captain Dick Pic. Have we become the pro Dick Party? Did he send a dick pic? Asked Arthur. He hasn't denied it. They should clear up and show it. I think Fetterman just kind of wants to see Graham Plattner's dick. If I'm being real, I think Fetterman just kind of wants to see what Graham Plattner got going on. This is foreplay. It's strange. Strange. Fetterman's like, show it to me. Let me see it. There's left alternative in Maine running as Plattner and lost. I did see this, but I'm pretty sure she's also like a lib. Not like a horrendous lib, but like I don't think she's like meaningfully like radical compared to Graham Plattner. I know Trump weighed in. Trump on Plattner, he's a thug. They're trying to make excuses for him. He's worse than any human being that's ever run for office. Okay. You can't say this as Donald Trump. You can't say this as Donald Trump. Donald Trump? Very silly. Very silly. Making the scandal of question, like, is Plattner worse than the person of a person than Trump is precisely the way he gets through this with as little damage as possible, which is a very big question. The latest news did sink his once strong faves by quite a bit. He's helping him with that. This is sure. Like this is good for Graham Plattner, right? What's really frustrating is that like you could have aligned a lot of the left around Graham Plattner if you just held him accountable. Again, 8 months ago. If in October you pressed Graham Plattner when nobody was watching, he apologized, actually apologized, right? Right now, there would be like a combined coalesced movement around him. People, including myself, would probably still have issues with him, but like it wouldn't be. A lot of the discourse right now is about what Chris Rabb was saying here, which is white people are caping for this man and giving him leeway that was not be provided to someone else. But that was the best explanation of what somebody wants when they or say hold them accountable. It always sounds like they want something to say that doesn't actually mean anything, but your explanation was excellent. I try to be very, very coherent about what I mean and what I expect from people, right? I don't expect a lot. I expect when you cause harm to marginalized people, you apologize for that harm, you take accountability, and then you move forward. Right? And if you watch me, you know that I've said this so many times. Right? And it's not a lot to expect. Right? It's you face your past head on. You accept that you've hurt people. You accept that you've harmed people. Right? You express your regret. You say that like I wish I didn't do that. I'm sorry for doing that. Right? You hold yourself accountable. You do self-reflection. And then you move on. The problem is Graham Plattner never did that because he was never questioned about it. Right? Graham could have been that person. He could have asked those questions, and he just didn't. Maybe it's worth reviewing how Breaking Point spoke to Fetterman compared to Plattner.
Senate. The only reason Democrats really have a shot is because there are some questions about these candidates. I mean, Pennsylvania at this point, at the beginning of this race, I really thought Fetterman was not just like an okay candidate. I really thought he was one of the best Democratic candidates in the country because he had that just natural, authentic, everyman appeal. There's
Exactly. It's the exact same thing. Did about Platter. I have more if you need it. Oh, please. I don't know how much or how, like, I don't know what to say about this. What do you want to say about this? We expect Platter to have a stroke, though. Fetterman didn't become like this because he had a stroke. Honestly, I'm more inclined to say that he got bought. Right? There were signs, right? He was caping to the pro-Israel lobby before he was elected. Those signs were ignored. Like here. Yeah, Fetterman was pro-Israel before his stroke. Exactly. Right? There were signs that were ignored. I guess both said that we will deal with it. I think it's a bit of both. Yeah, but do you understand? You get that, like, Platter has like the same sort of things, right? Platter, I don't expect Platter to go bad because he has a stroke. I expect Platter to like go bad because he has a history of being inconsistent. Graham Platter has more of a history of being inconsistent than John Fetterman does, right? Graham Platter knowingly knew that the Iraq War was bad and decided to join anyway. He knew that it was bad, went back for tour 2. Knew that it was bad, went back for tour 3. Knew that it was bad, went back for tour 4. Left, knew that it was bad, went back to Blackwater. Right? He has a history of inconsistency. Aggressive adapting from to the challenges from Democratic majority for Israel. This is what unlisted. How did you find this?
Right, and so they, in the last cycle, a bunch of candidates, progressive candidates, did make it through this kind of DMFI and Reid Hoffman gauntlet, but a lot of them did it by really trimming their sails, particularly on Israel-Palestine, and signing statements saying, like, I denounce BDS. I have never supported BDS. If I did, that was somebody else that supported it. Fetterman, literally, which in my interview, he says they came very close to endorsing Connor Lamb, and because Connor Lamb was begging them for super PAC spending. Fetterman literally let DMFI edit his statement on Israel-Palestine. Like, just campaign, just tell us what you want us to say. To
Why
not
do they care so much about Israel? Not the Democratic majority for Israel, Reid Hoffman and all of them. Like,
I think so.
Or are they
Dimitri,
separate?
yeah, it's interesting, and
So it's not like they didn't know. It's not like they didn't know that Fetterman would turn out to be pro-Israel. It was ignored. It was ignored. It was a thing that was actively discounted and ignored. Right? There were red flags that were ignored because John Fetterman, as Cristobal was saying here, I got closed by accident. Oh no, here. As Cristobal was saying here, because of identity politics.
Fetterman was not just like an okay candidate. I really thought he was one of the best Democratic candidates in the country because he had that just natural, authentic, everyman appeal. There's no doubt about it. The fact that he had a stroke.
This is what they care about. This is what they care about. This. It's the natural everyman appeal. It's whiteness. It is. It is whiteness. There's another way to say white man. Yes, and that's where it comes from. Fetterman was never anti-Zionist, but the people who were writing Fetterman and now Platter sound exactly the same. Platter might present himself as pro-Palestine, but there's other shit. But even then, he's not an anti-Zionist. Graham Platter is not anti-Zionist. I say this all the time. I was there in Pittsburgh during the campaign ceremony, Obama, the mayor. Everyone felt that they had to bolster Fetterman because Oz was so bad, the dichotomy of aesthetics for sure. And does that not sound similar to what people are saying now with Janet Mills? You see a video of the two 20-somethings who found and pushed Platinum to run? No, I didn't. Is that even pro-Palestine for real? I mean, I can see the argument that he's like pro-Palestine. You know what I mean? I can understand that argument. I do think that like people are giving him too much credit when compared to like, you know, where the current society is. Like he's not like okay, here, let's say like this. People are saying it like, yeah, if he was a grifter, why would he not just be pro-Israel? Like, look at the polling. People don't like Israel. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that's a marker for how radical he is. Israel's not popular with anybody, right? This video is turning me into a burn it all down populist ready to toss out the arrogant political leaks. These Ivy League ex-Bernie staffers who recruited. Wait, I thought he was recruited by a labor union.
And at this point, you hadn't vetted Graham Plattner. You hadn't done a full scrub of who he is. How did you go about vetting him? And why did you?
We paid a nice firm a whole chunk of money and got some stuff back. Some of what you've seen on the news we got back. Other stuff we didn't.
Did the vetting process turn up the tattoo that became so controversial?
No.
The Reddit posts, did that turn up in the vetting process?
The firm sent us a thing and it had some of the posts, but it didn't have all of them.
And what did you think about that? How did you think your way through?
I thought he was recruited by a labor union. Am I crazy? Did we not see that? Who are these guys? Who did they pay? React.dev, chat. Like he did organizing before though? No, but like Graham Plattner said that he was recruited by a labor union. So after the Bernie endorsement, he was made endorsement too. No. Graham Plattner said this. Am I tripping? Graham Plattner said that a labor union approached him with a few people and was like, we want you to run because you're great. He said two people approached him. No, he said a union. We looked at it on stream. He said a union approached him. I promise you, we looked at it. We went and we looked at it. We found it. Because he said, some people approached me. And I was like, who approached him? Right? And then we looked it up and it said like a union approached him. Authentic, by the way.
The fact that he had posted these things on social media.
I said none of this will or should stop him from becoming a U.S. Senator.
And what was your
Clearly the
thinking
voters
there?
agree. I think if what the voters wanted were people who were grown in vats and had never done or said anything that they might regret their entire lives, we'd have a very different country. Part of our thesis here is that people do not want their candidates grown in vats. They want people who are real human beings.
I can see the Ezra Klein analogy. Was this it? Unions hunted for a Susan Collins challenger. They found unknown oysterman. In July, wait, hold on, where? His rise of harbor master to planning board chair in the Hancock County town of Sullivan to a buzzing insurgent candidate at one of the biggest races in New York City. Next year's Senate map happened over about a month. It was a part of a union's effort to find a Democrat who can appeal to working class voters. The party has shed over the past decade. In July, Plattner spoke with Jason Shedlock, the president of Maine State Building and Construction Trade Council. This isn't Jason Shedlock, is it? via Zoom to talk about the potential run while working on his oyster boat. It was striking to me. It wasn't scripted. It was just him sharing his vision. In an interview, Plattner said running was not on his plate until labor and community groups contacted him about a month ago. But like, apparently he was scouted by like former Bernie staffers. I think they must be linked to Bernie somewhere. But that's like a different story that they're selling, no? Obviously, this is not like a big like deal in comparison to those other controversies, but like also building, construction, trade are typically some of the most harmful reactionary unions in America. Organized locally for housing or tenant, they're your biggest city ops. That makes sense.
And they want people who do not look and sound like the background people who've been leading this country off a cliff for the last century.
Can the former Bernie staffers and union scouts be the same thing? Yes, I guess. Technically speaking, but like, I think what's weird about it to me is that how cagey he's been about how he was scouted. You know? I think they might be lying by omission, like not clearly stating who first found him or who were the main people pushing for him. Yeah. I don't know. I think that's it, right?
Really like bad empanada in his community. But even if that was true, even if
video, I don't even want to watch the full video. It's like long. It's like 20 minutes. Unless there's like good stuff in it. Oh, the Grand Planner also talked here. This is supposed to be a short stream, guys. Anyway, I don't want to keep crying about it. I don't think I'll keep yelling about the Plattner thing. I'll finish this one off.
Worth exploring more.
I just don't get this.
But they
or about Israel, not the Democratic majority for Israel. Reid Hoffman and all of them. Like,
I think so.
Or
Dimitri, yeah, it's interesting and worth exploring more.
I just don't get this.
But they have teamed up with DMFI. Like they have the same consultants. Mark Mellman does the polling for mainstream Democrats. Reid Hoffman and Dimitri just seem to like kind of appreciate their political sensibilities. But it does raise a question like, okay, your main issue is that you think Trump is, and we could talk about this too, that Trump is a disease. Like that's Dimitri's kind of fundamental kind of analysis, that Trump is not the symptom of a broader thing, but Trump is the disease itself. So the only thing that matters is going after Trump. And I was like, but then why are you spending tens of millions of dollars on Israel-Palestine? Like that doesn't quite square.
Doesn't square at all. Yeah. I always find these so interesting. But I think you're right. The biggest news out of that is to the progressive Democrats. It's like the Mad Men meme. They're like, I don't think about you at all. Yeah, you are. It's like you are nothing.
Yes.
Yeah.
No labels. Yeah. To call it. So he's come guns blazing. Yes. Absurd venal effort. Right. What do you think of? I actually agree with him that I think no labels hurts Biden more than it hurts Trump. But what are Republicans following this kind of no labels thing?
This is purely an establishment Dem thing, which is why I think it's funny. The Republicans are like, again, to the no labels. They're like, I'm not thinking about this. I'm not thinking that.
In the summer, a few weeks before Grand Planner fever swept Maine and beyond, a group of mostly millennial Democrats coordinating with the Maine labor leaders. Okay. Community activists and volunteers, and many of them Bernie Sanders campaign alums, have been scouting the state for a candidate who could unseat Collins.
This is a strategy. Right. So to me, it's very much you doth protest too much about the no labels. Can you explain that for people who don't know what we're talking about?
Right. So
okay, they talk about the no labels or whatever. But like, I think it's interesting about like just the difference in how they cover, like John Fetterman versus like, or compared to how they cover Graham Plattner now. It's like identical. But yeah. I don't know. We cover this. I think I made my point on the Chris Rabb thing. Or at least I tried to. It's wrong of me to feel like at this point he goes through his promises great, but if he doesn't, can we find the next person to replace him? You can feel however you want to feel. I'm not here to change your mind. I'm here to address concerns and issues that I've seen. And that's about it. What I find interesting in my search is I can't find any mention of Fetterman's chasing down a black man with a gun. That only came up after the fact. I'm watching this on there. I always catch you in this chat. You probably haven't caught me in the chat for a while. But no, I have plans. That's in. I have to get packed up because I leave in a few days for Los Angeles. Ugh. Just Rabb was amazing in his interview. I'm glad I played it. Yeah, pretty good. With Nyx, no. Nyx is staying here. For uni? No, I don't have uni in Los Angeles. I'm going to LA to move my stuff. Anyway, just going back to get rid for mayor as a true socialist. That's funny. That's it, actually. Right in time for the World Cup. Don't remind me. We decorate the new place at 1,000 subs, maybe. That's right. I'm trying to squeeze y'all for monies. Anything else, chat? Anything else on Grand Platter? In conclusion, wait, did the Nazi in Florida lose Fishback? LOL. Classroom University? I'm not doing that. Did I pull it the whole time? No. Yeah, but he had a lot of attention because he said bombastic things. They covered Fetterman's stroke the exact that they covered Plattner's tattoo. I think it's just so interesting. All right, that's it. I'll be back. If not, wait, what is today? Wednesday? I have 2 days. If I'm not back on tomorrow, I'll be back on Sunday. Wait, Jake Lane is in prison on a $1 million bond? That is hilarious. That is really funny. Game 4 predictions, Spurs. Spurs. What did the last game end at? Hold on. I need to know that. $115 to 111. Spurs. 102 to 96. That's my take. That's my take. So you're the GOAT? If the Spurs win, will you read birthday cards? No. Are you back here after the game? I don't even watch basketball. Best thing you've ever had. I just kind of want the Knicks to lose. Because I see a lot of people pro Knicks. I want to see them upset. After you move into play Magic, you promise. I don't know if I promised that. I'm from North Carolina and don't watch basketball. I don't watch basketball because I'm from North Carolina. I am tired of the Chapel Hill versus Duke discourse. I do not care. That's where I'm at. Does win to sacrifice New York? Indeed. What sport is good? I'm kind of good at. Define good. There was a time where the Hornets were decent. I'm pretty sure. Hockey, we have the Hurricanes, the Checkers. They're around. The Hurricanes just evened up the initial Stanley Cup final right now. See, I know stuff. I know sports. Anyway, that's it. Were the Panthers ever good? The Panthers were good a single year, and that was 2015, and they've never been good again. They were good in 2015. They were like 15-1 regular season. Made it to the Super Bowl. Lost to Peyton Manning's last game. Ron Rivera got fired. Cam Newton left. Greg Olsen left. Steven Smith left. And then they got cooked. It was cooked. And they were never good again. Thomas Davis retired. Luke Kuechly retired. It was really bad. It was really bad. Everybody left after like 2015, 2016. The team went to the toilet. If I dropped the Panthers bar on Angels too, I think is what Jinx did. It was rough. It's rough. See, I knew that is the last time I followed sports. That was the last time I followed sports. Was when the Panthers lost in 2015. Also, bye YouTube chat. Adios.